Councillor Micah? Or I guess it's you,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Councillor Micah.
Okay. Okay, I don't know how we want to do, I have numerous questions, so I don't know, do we want me to go through all mine from start to finish? Do we want to go,
Yeah, go through all your questions.
okay, so if we want to go basically to page 16 of our agenda, which is basically page 1 of the report, under wastewater compliance targets. It looks like there's some outstanding regulatory requirements. Can we,
Sure.
give us an update as to what that is?
So they are operational targets that Aqua has that is half of what the compliance limit is. It's an operational target that was exceeded, but there was no actual compliance objectives exceeded in the
Okay.
quarter.
Okay. And so basically that little triangle, when you look at it says results are in range but not yet achieved. So is that something that we're trying to get to that, or are we gonna see this so that I don't ask every time I see it? Okay. You forget me, don't you, Ashley? Okay, so if we go to the next page, where it shows our flows.
Yes.
So when I look at this and I compare it to averages, if we look at March, is that what we're looking at when we see a water main break? Or, why there'd be such a dramatic increase in flows in the month of March based on monthly averages and 5-year averages? And the same with April, significantly, in May again, we're much higher. Unless I'm reading this wrong.
No, you're looking at the maximum daily flow.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's on cue with seasonal changes, like when everything starts to get nice out and people are outside more doing stuff, it starts to come up a little bit, and then as summer starts to go, it kind of comes back down.
Okay.
But some of them could be attributed to a main break, but I don't believe there was any in that.
okay,
in that
because
time.
so again, let's just have a quick look at March. When we look at the 5-year average, the 5-year average is 289. So in that month, we jumped from 289 as an average to 617. So that's, 2.4, that's 300% increase.
I'll look into that and see if there was a.
And then again in May, that's a 400% increase, about. So there's just, I think those are things that we would be looking at. Was there something specific that occurred in those months that were?
I don't have that with me, as this report is from July till September.
Okay.
So that would have been covered in the.
So then,
Q2.
when the year end comes in, which I'm assuming we'll receive in January, if we can, or you guys can look at that, because those are questions I'm gonna ask, and it is a full year picture then. And let's have a look at that as to why. Is it because they flooded the arena and it took 14 times more water than it's ever taken, and that's what spiked that level? Or is there something significant going on with water loss? And then if you turn the page, it corresponds with wastewater. So those numbers to me don't jive in a sense, because I'm looking at, okay, so if our water spiked, how come our wastewater treatment didn't spike in correspondence with that? So I don't need an answer now, but if we can just address that when the annual report comes in. And then with that report, the way you've got it set up, so we look at if we go to water, we're looking at a legend that shows us max daily flow. We look at monthly average, 5-year average. But when we look at wastewater, we've got average daily, max daily. So if we can have those legends corresponding, so if it's, so you can compare apples to apples. I'm sure that's just a Excel
I'm sure that's. What it is,
thing. Okay, that's it. So that's just for next time, so we can look at that, because that's something when I chaired this committee, I really monitored that, because the two numbers should correspond, because what's coming, well, it'll be a little higher on the water, because I think we have a few more water users, but they should generally correspond. And if they don't, then clearly there's a break or something, because that water's not coming back out to be treated.
Correct.
Okay.
I will say in May that that was likely when our spring flushing program was taking place, like the entire town was being done.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
a large one.
But just something to keep an eye on.
I have it noted.
And so then, I don't have notes on every page, so don't panic. Just with the odor complaints, clearly it's one household. I see that you've done some corrective action. Is that action working? Or are we in a position where clearly you're living next to a wastewater treatment plant and you're gonna have to have some level of understanding, you're going to smell it? Are we doing all we can for that?
Yes, we've mitigated, we've changed the way we pull sludge out of the system and put it in the digester. So that's like the process that's going to be hauled away.
Yep,
And that is,
that's the biggie.
that's the biggie.
So if we stay on top of that, we should help to
Yes.
somewhat consistently mitigate that
As
issue.
opposed to wasting once a week, now we're doing it at a smaller volume, 5 times a week, so it's
Okay,
less and doesn't smell as bad.
right. And how does that impact cost?
Sorry?
How does that impact overall cost if we're doing it?
Oh, the guys do it in their morning walk around.
Okay,
It's not a
great.
flip the switch.
Well done. Thank you.
And this year there has been, the south wind has been way more than normal.
So we don't need the weather network. We'll
No,
just.
no.
You hear a complaint, the wind's coming from the south.
So the only other question, again, it's basically the same thing going back to the flows in and out, because when you look at page 21, it shows the totals for cubic meters. And again, just keeping an eye on, do those totals match? And is that consistent? So what's being treated and going out as far as water is consistent with what's coming back in and being treated, or sorry, what's being brought in, and you understand what I'm saying. What's coming in and going out are similar. Okay, I think that's it for my questions.
Go ahead.
That's it for me. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just more housekeeping, just because we have some new members on the committee. I wonder if, I believe it was provided before, kind of a sheet of acronyms. So I know like when you were talking, you know, you reference MECP and ECA. Just maybe like a definition sheet of some of the acronyms that we will be using. You know, there's probably a list of about 20 that we use more regularly that then we can provide council members so that it's easier to understand some of the explanations as you're giving them. And then the work order is completed, so as for the new members, there will be a presentation coming in January from CGIS. So CGIS is a mapping system that we use to log the service requests and the work orders. And we're starting to input, if there's any issues with meters or anything like that, it's used by our deputy treasurer as well as Aqua. So I'm expecting when I see the work orders completing, that's something that's already logged into that spreadsheet. So when there's questions asked, like certain things that are happening certain times of the month, I could generate a report and it would show the work orders and the month they're in, so that might help us to isolate some of those spikes as well.
Okay, I'm just wondering how we go about like adding like hydrant flushing like a routine,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. I'd have to talk to.
Yeah, so I think, and that's a good question, that was my next kind of point, as we're, you know, budgeting, and we're going to be meeting with CGIS to see if we're adding any new components, and if there's no cost to adding any more information. So as we're trying to, Aqua's been really good, and staff has been very great at calling, and the fire department's been adding to when they're flushing, like when they're using a hydrant, so that we can kind of estimate better where some of the water loss is going, or some of the activity that isn't being treated, like coming in and going out, that's not the user. So I think if we can maybe add that and send that question to Jeff from CGIS, then maybe that's something when we're doing flushing, even if it's just the length of time and where it was flushed, so that we know what's happening there.
As far as it goes there too, Ashley, like if we're, like I understand what Shelley's saying, she's wondering why there's so much water, right, in the month of May. Okay, it isn't coming back in. You're just stated the same thing, right? Is it like when I go and buy water from the municipality at the arena, you put the meter on the hydrant? Is that something that you could do if you're flushing a hydrant? Just stick a meter on it, bang, write it down, this is how much water we flushed out, done. Is that something that can be done or not? Because like as far as it goes, it doesn't add anymore. It doesn't add anymore time into hooking up, right? Because you're just hooking on a fire hose now, and then you have your little box, right? We'll just put the meter in between, mark it down. Okay, we flushed out this much water on this day out of this hydrant and tracked, right? Done. Write it down.
Great, that's a very good solution, that's
Yeah.
great.
The only issue I have with that is we can't get the velocity with the meter to get the scouring of the water main.
Okay.
Because it slows it down as it's a turbine
Yes.
meter.
Yeah. No.
Well, we
Absolutely.
can work out like we always timed from the time when the hydrant was open to when it was shut off.
Yeah.
As well as our marine residuals and any
Yeah.
maintenance activities that were performed at the time, so we'd be able to work out a calculation.
Yeah.
based
Just
the
on
static- like on the pressure.
Yeah.
How much,
pressure and
you know, how much flow we're using per hydrant.
Yep.
That's good.
Just something like that. Just
Yeah. Yeah,
because at the end of the day, you're probably just standing there watching it go and taking a residual every now and again anyway, right? So, I don't know, but, I think. And then the only other question that I had was just about the colored water complaints. There's a few of them there. Obviously, the fire flow testing, but like on Stanford Street for fire flow testing at the herb farm, would it affect it all the way back there?
yes, sir.
Is that just how it's looped, or?
No, it just the way it's performed, it was done prior to our one flushing program. Like I believe that was the fall one or later on.
Okay.
Might have to look into that. But no, it shook up a lot.
It shook
when
up a
you
lot.
start to pull water in different areas,
Yeah, because you'd be pulling a lot of water.
yeah, their fire pumps are quite large.
Yeah. What is the service in there? 8-inch or 10? 6? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
6 all the way.
6 all the way in. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excellent. Any other
Just have
questions?
one more, not a question, just more a comment if I can through
Yep.
the chair. I just wanted to just add some details on the order complaints. I realize that it's one location, but we did confirm we had received other phone calls. It's just they didn't like sign in a formal complaint. And we wanted to ensure it was logged, so specifically so that we could put it on the CGIS. But I think you and I both confirmed that it was definitely warranting the complaint. It was very substantial. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Good.
Excellent.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so moving on to the expenditure requests.
Yes.
Okay, so, the expenditure requests were pertaining to, miscellaneous items at each plant, both water and sewage, and those are just, sawzall blades, grinder, drill bits, normal everyday stuff. The invoices are all attached. The SAI conformance audit is, to ensure that, your water plant is being operated at, everything that we're documenting is like everything's being performed. A third party comes in and does that every year. Replacement parts for the distribution system. Joe and I had a brief discussion earlier. We restocked. Everything was to restock for, say, the water main break on 52 Trader Lane, and things like that were required for those repairs, but then also to replenish our stock. I did borrow one from this town Renfrew that night because we were -1 at that point. It's a lot nicer to have it than
Yeah.
looking for it in the middle of the night when we can keep up. And also there was UPS batteries installed at the water tower just for in a power failure. The pressure transmitter sends a signal back and forth to the water plant to tell us how much water we have and when to operate the plant. So those were replaced. They go bad every couple of years. The sewage plant had nitrification simulators. So that's just a product that enhances the nitrification process and speeds it up a little bit if the nitrifiers aren't working as good in the colder weather. And then also we replaced some UV lamps this year again. And like I said, every invoice is attached, like to each one, so.
One question on the invoices, and it's just the monthly invoice really. Did you get prices from other water and sewer suppliers or on the parts? Because that pipe seems awfully expensive.
It has went up a lot.
It has went up a lot, yeah, but there's a big shortage on it, I understand that, right? But it's just,
No, Wolseley has been our preferred vendor, and they had it in stock where, I
Okay.
believe Crane did not.
okay, Crane or MCO or someone, okay, okay. Now, is that pipe that you bought, that stock item, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, excellent,
Just to have it for, we need it,
absolutely.
just a couple lengths is.
Better to be looking at it than looking forward, right?
That's right.
Excellent,
Did you want me to read the recommendation?
please,
That council approve the Ontario Clean Water Agency aqua expenditures as presented in the amount of $16,987.90. Work orders 2963692, 3065577, 3104636, 3017131, 3066162, 2963682, 3017137. You need a mover and a second.
mover, seconder, okay, moved by Mayor Wilmer, second by Councillor Micah.
And
Excellent.
actually, if you could just keep the bills that are like $700 bills only, and just keep that, like,
Just keep
we don't
it
wanna
there.
see anything, like, I like the hundreds, not the thousands. Can we try and do that, Ashley?
There'd be just a lot more of it.
If we could get it down to like 1999, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Just also, I wasn't sure if we just missed it or if it was just included for information, but we didn't speak to Appendix B. So I'm not sure if council members had a question or needed clarification on the
Which-
cost plus variance report.
well,
So you do identify that it's in line, but I wasn't sure if you want to speak to that. It's on page 24 of your package.
Okay, yes, well, salaries were under, chemicals are under. I'm speaking to the water treatment plant right now, services and supplies and equipment with lab costs and pure cost, fuel, things like that have all increased this year. It seems to be a common denominator at all the facilities, but, everything is, of course, increased this year. Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Reagents, lab analysis. Is there any other questions with that, sir?
I was gonna question at the end of the year,
Okay,
when the final report comes in.
and the final one for Q4s?
all right. Excellent,
Do we not need to vote on that motion?
Yeah, we need to vote,
Just
yeah.
ask if everybody agree with the motion?
everybody agree with the motion? Good,
Carried?
Okay. All right, and I'll take the gavel back, or actually you can just pass it to Councillor
Oh,
Schulis.
There we go, thank you.
And at this time, I'll,
thank you very much, Ashley.
yeah, thank you. We pass the gavel to Councillor Schulis, and it's his portion with fire and protection and emergency services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have the chief here. Now, Gwen, you were saying something about we're connected and this, so how is this gonna go back and forth and I'm good? And
can hear
even
you.
with no light? Oh, I see, okay, got it. All right, we have the municipal reports here, 9.1.1. That is the fire department activities you found on pages 43 to 47. And Chief Quad has done a background information for us, bylaw breakdown. Attached is a bylaw breakdown for 2022. Statement here, there is a lot of open files yet that require follow-up. Only one new complaint has been received the last 2 weeks. Again, attached is a 2022-11-20 bylaw council report. Does anybody have any questions on this file here from Chief Quad?
Can we start with the other report there? I think you're looking at the wrong report, that one. Yeah, he's gonna start with that one,
Fire.
under fire. He's gonna start with that one first.
I see. Oh, I just got it mixed up, eh?
Yep.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, can we, it really doesn't matter in what order, it does, in this case, I did make a small error, but I don't think it would make any difference. It's still on the agenda, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so let's do it, because I really think that we can go with, what I've just said here. So any questions here, to, Chief Clark?
Sorry, are we, okay, I'm looking, so we're talking about the breakdown reports? Is that what we're talking
And
about?
I-
Yeah,
yes.
on the, actually, we're going to be, we're talking about 9.1.2. My mistake here. I just had flipped two documents, so.
Oh, we're in sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Bylaws
Yeah,
rather than
bylaws.
fire.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but.
No, that's okay, no problem.
And that's found on page 49 and 54.
So while council is looking to see if they have any questions, just wanted to elaborate on the report that the bylaw officer brings forward. So this report is generated from the CGIS platform. It's the same service request mapping that we utilize for water, wastewater as well. And Corey's populates all of the information as they get the complaints, and or it states the status, in progress, completed, or not.
So I guess my question then on this particular report, seeing I had my hand up, when I go through this, overwhelmingly what I'm seeing is sea containers and trailers, and clearly building permits. So when I look at this, it doesn't give an address or location. Are these all individual, or are they are the same, say the same trailer, that's 5 different
No,
complaints?
they're all individual, every one of the individual complaints.
Okay, and each one of these complaints, like, just to be clear on bylaw services, unless something's changed since I haven't been around, we don't go out looking for trouble.
We don't get time to
We
look for trouble.
only respond to phoned in or written complaints, correct? Okay. So, based on that then, are they all the same complaints with trailers? Like basically just the fact that there's a trailer there, or there's something going on specifically with the trailer? And there's a reason I asked for that, because we've maybe having some conversations with regards where Luke's department is concerned. And, maybe we need to be taking this into consideration and looking at our bylaws, because if there's 200 trailers, period, and, the bylaw department's running out to 185 of them with the same issue, is that efficient? Or do we need to look at the bylaws to say maybe the
Right.
bylaw needs to be changed, because this is a lot?
No, I hear you.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of going with the question.
Exactly, Madam CEO.
So yes, if you recall, we did have during training session
Yes.
talking about planning, that the manager of planning and development did identify that in talking to staff, there are some priority bylaws to be reviewed. One of them is trailer encroachments, sea containers, as well as I think
Bunkies.
Luke was bunkies as well.
Yes, okay.
So that is the whole purpose of
Yes,
tracking.
this is
it
fantastic.
through
This is
the
great.
work,
Yeah.
because then they know what the status is. And it has been so busy in the building department that only with the assistance of the bylaw department, and which is why we had the municipal compliance officer as well, was to go and post the stop work orders and that as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, no, that's good, that's basically the question, I'm glad, because we need to, right hand needs to talk to left hand, and then we look for efficiencies and do what we can, because it's just not efficient or cost effective to be
That's right.
continually dealing with the same issue, and maybe there's something wrong with the bylaw.
Yeah, you have a good point here, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Corin, I'm just wondering, there's only been one new complaint in the past 2 weeks. Is this giving you time to catch up on the many that are in progress? Because you still have,
Many in process is still a compliance officer,
okay,
because the amount of workload is increased so much, that's the reason he's there.
yep,
So he's doing all the follow-up whenever he comes in. Right now he's got about 1 day a week or so required, so
okay. But are you able to,
I haven't had a chance to look at it or read the report. I haven't been able to follow up with anything.
Because it's, sort of going back to what Shelley was saying, when we look at the bylaw, if we're never going to catch up with this, I sort of question the validity of it all. So it's just something I thought perhaps, since we don't have any complaints coming in right now, or fewer, that we may be able to catch up on some of them. I understand where you're coming from, though. Yeah.
Councillor Blank?
Yes, according to this, how many repeat offenders, and do they continue to offend?
That I'd have to check. I honestly couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to look at that. Back in the file, see what the addresses are and what's going on. But from what I can tell from that, those are all individual offenders right across the entire township. But I'd have to go on to CGIS and actually look at it.
Just for repeat offenders?
Yeah.
So are you involved in going out to these places?
Compliance officer has, and I have, and I did before this, but right now with everything else that's been going on, I'm too busy.
Yes, Madam CEO?
Just to
Oh,
your, oh, sorry.
Did Mayor have his hand
No.
up? No, Madam CEO?
So just for clarification to the question, I think because the spreadsheet has the address, we just omit the address because of the public record. We would be able to see by address. So if we did the same report by address, then you'd be able to provide that information. Like, it would narrow it down to how many per address versus, and see if they are, because it would show if they went back 3 times to the same.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of my questions as well.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Okay, any other questions from council for the chief? I see none. Now, this here recommendation just received as information for us. And that's so, anyway, sorry for the confusion. I just grabbed the wrong one. We're back on track. And we are now going to do 9.191. That's the fire department activities. And that again is found on page 43 to 47. So the chief has given us here some background information. Fire call breakdown. Attached is the calls for service breakdown for 2022. Some messages from the chief. So chief, if you could relay the message here to us.
Okay, the fire call breakdown so far to 2022. In November, we've had 84 calls so far to date. 2022 fire call breakdown also shows you we've doubled the number of calls from 2021. But for the 3rd year in a row, we've kept fire losses down to less than $100,000 property value, which is pretty impressive. We have lots of total destruction 3 years. Firefighters got there fairly quickly. They got the equipment, and they got the skills. They take their training very seriously, so we're very fortunate at the department we do have, the dedication we have. Firefighter Service Awards, as you can see, there are a lot of years of service there. Starting with Dan Drevnoff, Deputy Chief Chibesky, Deputy Chief Drevnoff, both have 35 years. Fire Captain O'Malley has 30. Firefighter Jamie Heron has 20. Josh Hazard, Monica Sway, each have 10. Conrad Spolsky's been fire chief or fire secretary for 5 years, so he got a total of 47 years with the fire department. He had 42 as a firefighter before retiring. I've been on the fire department now for 5 years. Michael Rakowski's a firefighter. Chris Yandernall and Darcy Sheen have also been a firefighter for 5 years. They're quite a accomplishment, milestones for those firefighters. And then the next thing will be we have to schedule within the next week or so our tabletop exercise for emergency management for compliance. So we're looking at either the 13th or the 14th is sometime one of those days if anybody's available. ECD group and the mayor will have to be available, and myself will go in, and the CEO will pick a time. We'll hope I got everything started in place for what we want to do for a tabletop, but we're just gonna cover the time and date.
Perfect, Chief Rod. Yeah, very good report, Chief. And I don't know if there's any questions for the chief at this table here.
What scenario are we doing for the emergency management
Probably gonna do a chemical spill.
chemical spill?
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? I'm not seeing any. Oh, Madam CEO.
Not a question, I just mentioned to the fire chief that when we had the Ontario Clean Water presentation on standard of care for the water system, it was recommended that it was recommended that we should consider for next year for a tabletop to do something in conjunction with Ontario Clean Water. And I think that was, and I mentioned to you that at that meeting, there was a suggestion, I think we'll try to do that. And then we can take into account some of the experiences from the actual water loss that we experienced as well. I think that was
Yeah.
your hope to do that this year, but you
Yeah, it's
couldn't.
just, it runs, if we don't do a full scenario that way, we can't do two identical, you know, like water emergencies, fire emergency, a chemical emergency, tornado 2 years in a row, you have to have one, it has to be spaced every 2 years.
Yeah.
So just run a more full scale, more realistic, we'll get Aqua to assist us with it. So we figure hopefully May 2023, we get Aqua to work with Ashley and Mike and them and go to a proper scenario that's realistic and so you know we're up against. So if it doesn't happen, we have a good grasp on it. That's the reason we're going with that instead of this year.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, yes, Councillor Blank?
Just a quick question regarding the fire call breakdowns. So total to date, on one chart shows 84. And on the other charts, when you go to do the breakdown, North Hall, South Hall on the following page, it's 75 and 40.
That's because each hall, that's usually, the North Hall's responded to 75 of the 84 calls, and the South Hall's responded to 40
I see.
40 of the calls.
Okay.
So how that works is,
Okay.
any wildfires,
Okay.
or structure fires, or major, like where you have a car
Okay, so
accident,
it's a breakdown.
they
of
break down, so
those.
each hall knows exactly what each hall has done.
Okay.
But the total call between the, so somebody might do duplicate calls, like
Yes.
40
Yes.
may, both halls
Yeah.
may have responded,
Okay,
was to show what each individual hall went to, so we know what.
okay.
Yep, no, it's
Requirements are
good,
for
makes
departments.
sense.
Thank you,
Yep, because they may both go, both go.
That's right.
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, Madam CEO?
I just want to add clarification as well. So the charts that you see, the fire chief does them in Excel. And since the fire chief has been using CGIS, he's been speaking and had asked for consideration. And I see that you're moving forward with the same platform as the other program with CGIS. So it actually logs to the property, and then you generate this same report as you saw for bylaw in that. So I'm not sure if you want to speak a little bit as to what you discussed with them.
No, that's right. That started that 1st of December, because it's a new year for us to start with fire calls. So we'll start off clean slate. I'll keep track of our training, keep track of every fire call, every address, so we can do it to generate proper reports. And you got graphs if you need them, so it's just a punch of a button. We can have them detailed quickly. So
That's great. That's
yeah,
really
like I said,
good.
we start 1st of December, because that's when our fire year starts over.
Yeah,
So we come up with clean slate. We're not running over 2 years, so
Yeah.
everything comes out here on these, right? So you see most current information.
perfect.
And what is efficient with this program is that it doesn't matter how many users go in, so the deputies from each hall, or if a member of each hall wanted to do that, or the secretary from the hall wanted to input some of that additional information, then they also have access to it. So,
That's correct.
yeah, thank you.
So,
Okay,
just one
and-
more comment, I
yes.
just kind of want to, because when you review the breakdowns, clearly the biggest, well, one of the biggest issues with regards to response is fire alarms, whether it's CO2 or fire. Is that, like, are those false alarms?
Majority are false alarms.
Yeah, is there,
And after the second alarm, you get charged
okay, that's,
$39 per alarm.
yeah,
They
okay,
need a full clear year,
yeah,
no alarms. And we do issue cost recovery for those calls.
okay. No, that's good,
Yeah,
that's
no,
good.
that's
Because I just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand
From
clarification.
before, I remember those conversations. I'm like,
No, that's
okay,
the
it's
reason
still
behind it.
happening,
You get two
okay.
warnings, two written warning
Yeah,
letters.
yeah,
Third one, and every town hall after that within a year, if you don't get a clear year, you get billed every time your trucks go out because of false alarm.
yes.
Do you issue many of those fines, Corey?
In the past year, we issued 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks, Corey.
Okay, I think everybody is good here. There is just a recommendation is that the fire department activity report is received as information, so we don't need a mover or seconder in that. And thank you very much, Chief Claude. Good report, and end of year, I'm sure 2023 will bring a lot of good stuff. Thank you very much, and I will pass the gavel over to Mayor Wilmer.
Thank you, Councillor Schulis. I now pass the gavel over to Councillor Blank, who's Chair of Recreation and Community Development.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to call on Hannah Kotowski, and that is the Recreation Community Development Manager, and we're we're ready for your report.
Perfect. So I have 3 things for you today. So the first is the municipal report. I have just a wrap up of the tennis club this year, some updates on the library, just a kind of overview of some projects that I'm updating for you, and then just a bit of a laundry list of general updates.
Go ahead.
Go
Yes.
in detail again.
Please do.
Okay,
Please
so,
do. Sorry.
sorry, I'm not sure what level of detail everyone wants. Okay, so tennis club, so it wrapped up, people were able to enjoy the courts a little longer this year due to our warm weather, which is great. A financial summary that was provided by the club is attached to this report. Day passes and overall memberships continue to grow year over year. Repairs to the court are still required, and they've been outstanding for many years. We've been having difficulty getting contractors to come and help us out. So there are very few people that do it, and we've been kind of stood up a few times by some. So we are still plugging away at that. I also have minutes for the final meeting of the committee. Neither myself nor a member of council were able to attend. Discussions regarding student grants and designated students for parks and tennis club are going to be chatted about between myself and Councillor Schulist, who's representative for the tennis committee, prior to a new MOU that will come forth early in the new year. I bring that up just because they did mention in their minutes there that they would like to see some changes to that. So.
Okay. I was reading through the minutes and I've been questioned, is there any times available for free tennis?
No, they're not. So it's always a membership only club.
Membership only club. Yep.
Or a day pass.
Yeah, sorry, or a day, yeah. So there's
Yes.
day, week, and then annual passes. So there's-
Do you think that they would ever consider doing a free tennis at least once a week to try to encourage people to take part in the game, especially younger ones?
Yeah, so I am definitely cooking up some ideas for how we can kind of make things a little more accessible for everybody in 2023. So it's definitely on my radar to have potentially a day or more be no cost.
Good, because participation is extremely important, I think.
How much is a day pass?
A day pass is $5, and a week is
$5.
10 or so, 20, and then for the year it's $140, I believe, and we have family and couple and single passes, so it's not expensive. We also do have the equipment right there as well, so if you don't have anything at home, we
Okay,
also
that was
lend it at no
another
cost.
question. Yes.
Yeah, one of the things with this club, if you look at it, it seems to be aging every year. And there are very few young people participating. I know 3-4 years ago, they used to hold youth clinics, and they were very, very popular. They worked with the high school, and I think that's something that they should be promoting again or trying to get back, because it really did encourage a lot of younger people to get out and play. And I think even the high school at one point was using it on a fairly regular basis with their team.
They still do.
Yeah, but not as much as it used to be used. And I remember because I helped with a couple of the clinics, and there were up to 40, 45 people participating. And they were free clinics, and they allowed people, of all abilities to try out the game. So I think something like that would be a good way of getting the sport to grow again, because I can see the courts from my house, and I know when they are used. It's generally in the morning, and there's very little activity in the afternoons.
I did attempt to put something like that together this year. Unfortunately, I did have nobody take me up on the offer to try to find somebody to run clinics or anything like that. So I did put out a call for experienced tennis players to potentially run some youth-oriented clinics, but I didn't have any bites, unfortunately. Yeah, but it is the past week or so I've been doing a lot of thinking about the tennis club and how we can see more use of that facility. So it is something that council can probably expect to hear more about early in the year.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Schultz?
Yes, to Chair Blank. I'm new to this file here, but I think in 2023 we're going to get together with the group, and we should get a plan together. I will definitely, of course, Hannah will relay some of these things to the club and all that. But I'm just going to have to investigate a little bit more about the history of how it all started and where it is at this point. But, you know, if there's any shortfalls in anything, we should try and, you know, create something that will benefit all people in the Madawaska Valley. Thank you very much.
Councillor, Mayor Mark.
Yeah, one other thing, I think if we're looking at the MOU again, or they want to open up for some changes, it is possible that you could put the requirement to offer a certain number of youth clinics right into that, so that they have it right in an agreement, and that would become their responsibility then.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's an excellent suggestion, thank you. Yeah. Yes, Councillor.
And,
Michael.
and just, I'm just curious, I know in the past, we've been able to get some funding through Jumpstart. Is there a way to look at that Jumpstart program that we could offer some, you know, some help supplements for youth to try it out for free? I know there's tennis rackets, that's fantastic. But as far as, you know, buying an hour's worth of time or 2 hours or specific day a week, 2 hours set aside, that Jumpstart would fund the use of, because we have to also have some revenue attached, right?
That's a great idea.
I don't know I just know that many times for specific sporting programs that we've been able to get a little, even if it was a couple $1,000s even, that could go towards blocking off some time for that. Yeah.
One more question too, what's the season for it? Is it just until when the snow melts to the snow falls? or-
Exactly, yeah. So we usually have them coming around in April or so, and then usually dies off by October.
And anything with tournaments, youth tournaments and stuff like that too, which could help grow the sport as well, you know, different things.
That could be
we can
Jumpstart too,
work with,
right?
yeah.
Like that could all be
Yeah.
maybe part of it, a little bit
Fun
of a
tournaments, not
youth
anything
program
that's-
built in there.
Yeah, it's all great suggestions to bring up to the committee to hopefully be able to spearhead some events would be fantastic.
Okay, yes,
I just have one more question, and that's with regards to the summer students.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're hired by federal funding, I believe. What portion of their salaries is covered? Is it 100%? Because I've been told it's 100%, so it's no longer 100%.
It's 50.
So
50.
it's now 50%.
Yeah,
Is
and-
that gonna be the case for 2023?
Yeah, if I'm successful with funding,
Yeah.
and then I'll also note that the tennis students also, I believe in 2021, it's possible that their salaries were completely put into under tennis, but they do a lot of parks work as well. So it should be
Okay.
split.
It should be, yeah. Yeah, that's where I was asking.
Yeah, so that
So
looks
if
high.
it's, if it's 50% and then, you know, so whatever that number is, and 50% of their time is based on maintaining the park, and then
Yes.
half of that is, so really it should only be 25% allocated back to
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I think that's only fair. That-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my understanding too that the tennis club organization does not like that these students are doing the parks, is that correct?
I think that they would prefer that there are no students at the tennis club, has been their clear message to me, so.
Is that right?
And then they have that in their minutes there, but, I've got some ideas. I don't wanna,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I think in 2023, you'll hear more from me about the tennis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Okay.
trying to be elusive, but I just,
And I'm
so
sure-
I'll just,
yeah.
No,
Exactly,
it's a
and
little
Councillor
bit
Schuler's will-
complicated
yeah,
situation,
yeah.
because,
Yes,
you
it
know,
is,
you do
yeah.
kind of need someone there to, if you're gonna come in and say, I
Yes.
wanna play for an hour, who's
Yeah.
taking the $5, so.
it's tricky, yeah.
It is, it's
And
a little bit.
It's too much stress for the front, you know, we've had in the springtime,
Yes.
they come here and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance, but I have, you know, in the past couple weeks, I've had some ideas that I'm gonna work through with Dave and with the committee, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
hopefully
maybe
we'll-
it's just 2 days a week, and then they can supplement in between or something.
Mayor,
Or,
Mayor Willow?
Yeah, I think what Councillor Mike has said about where their money is budgeted to is important, because those students really do a bit of everything down there. I mean, the lending library, the tennis, and the beach cleanup too, which is a big part, and particularly when the swimming lessons are on, it's so important. So, yeah, so I think they're very important, and even if the tennis people don't like having them there, I think it's important that we do have them there and just maintain a municipal presence down there.
Absolutely. I believe in students, and I think everybody here at this table does
Yeah.
believe in students, because they're our future, and if we can get them doing the right things the right way. And I'm sure Councillor Schulist will work alongside me here on that.
oh, Mark, you said that the club is there in the morning, you can see them, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a situation where the students are dedicated to park cleanup and maintenance in the mornings, and then when the club itself kind of, you know, after lunch, they're not playing in the heat of the
Yeah,
day, maybe
that's right.
then the students man for 4 hours, like from 1 till 4 or something, or 1 till 3 in the after, whatever. You know, maybe it's a situation like that where it's separated, but it's still functioning. I don't know. Anyway, just a thought.
CEO, yes?
Oh, sorry, wrong chair.
Wrong chair, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, just for clarification, we spoke briefly about the MOU and that we bring them at the beginning of the
Yeah.
year. In discussing with Hannah this morning, because we do want the tennis club to be part of those discussions, their MOU will come in at the end of April. So that they're part of those
Yeah.
discussions, so.
Good, thank you. Anything else on the tennis courts from the council? Okay, thank you, Hannah, continue on.
Perfect. So the library, so there are upgrades and repairs for the coming years. The building is showing its age. So this is just an update on some stuff that's been going on there using capital funds. So this year we did do a hazardous building materials assessment report before we kind of move forward with any other work to check for asbestos. And then we are moving forward with new lights being installed upstairs, as well as a new exterior light and new baseboard heaters installed downstairs. And there probably will be further expenses next year, as we ensure the building is accessible and can continue to function as a library.
Yes, Councillor, I mean, Mayor.
I just think one cautionary note with the library, when we're spending money on that building, you do have to remember that the library board, and they're in very early stages, but they do have a library building committee, and they are looking at potentially down the road, if they can find ways to fund it, of building a new library. So we should be careful how much we're spending on the old building. I know we have to keep it maintained, and that's basically what we should be doing, but nothing really beyond that. The health and safety matters and maintaining it are really what we need to continue with.
To continue on with that, Mayor, you have, council should anticipate further expenses in 2023 regarding the library, and it is a very crowded, busy spot, and we do need more space. And I know that the library people are looking forward to plans in the future. And I think there was a lot of grants and stuff available as well through time. I think a lot of that stuff can come up. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's something that we have to look at. Going around on the campaign too, a lot of people are on both sides of the issue. But the majority of people I have found in the community are supportive of a new library and a community hub. And I'm sure there will be opposition to that as well, but when it comes to the dollars and cents of it, I think that council will do quite well to work through that. Yes.
For clarification for new council, there was a building condition assessment done on all of the municipal facilities in 2021. So the priorities that you see what is being repaired now is the priorities that were set, to your point, health and safety, and some of the priorities that were supposed to be done in 2021 or were deemed for 2022, 2023.
Also, regarding the library, I'm not too sure of a lot of it, but I do know that there has been concern expressed about the hours that it's open and things like that. But in talking with the librarians there, both of them now, I have discovered that they do not want to have one person there.
That's right.
For safety. So you need two people within the facility at all times. And unfortunately, that's the way our society is today. And we do have to remember that safety and health of our employees, of the users of the library, and the library itself are important. Yes.
Mary, that's a good point, because I mean that's one of the issues we now face. That they have a tight budget to work with, so their hours have to be limited to some extent because they need to keep the two people in the building at all times. You know, if we could go back to the days when we just had one person in, it could be open longer hours. But I think for health and safety reasons, that's why some of their hours are like they are. But that really is up to the library board to determine and to work those out. So.
Anything else on the library? Okay, take it away, Hannah.
All right, so I just have a variety of project updates from stuff that's been going on in 2022. So we did complete a Lakeshore Park concept plan, so you should expect a presentation on that in January, or at the end of December, sorry, I don't remember. But they are coming, it's either one of the two. So they will be coming as a delegation to council. You'll have the reports before then, to be able to review them and ask any questions you have of the folks that completed that plan. The ice pad at PJY, as we know, is all completed, and we welcomed user groups back on November 10th. The new digital sign at the Arena Road, it's forthcoming, so the sign is there. The screens will be here before Christmas, and we are going to be having a kind of an advertisement policy to dictate what's on that sign that council can expect to see probably in the new year as well. As well, there was a redesign plan completed for the community kitchen at the Commonwealth Community Center. So it was completed using capital funds. It is attached here. The kitchen's likely going to need upgrades in the coming years. So the plan is just going to help us apply for grant funding and give us a vision of the updated space as we're able to make some changes to that building.
Can I just speak to
Yes,
that? Based on my
Yes, Councillor Micah.
involvement with the Cumbermere Recreation Committee, just for clarity's sake, because this is recorded. So I met with Hannah and the designer there, and they've done it in a way where when you look at that plan, the plan was not go in and gut and redo a $200,000 kitchen. That's not the way it was done. It's a little disjointed in the fact that if Hannah's able, it can be done in parts and bits and pieces. So if, say, a grant became available for a new stove, if a grant became available for a new dishwashing system, because that's one of the between the stove and the dishwashing, those are the two biggest issues as far as function. So so just to give you some background on that, that was sort of the way it was approached, because sometimes you can get a grant under seniors, different grant things. And the Cumbermere Recreation Committee, clearly we're a fundraising group, or I guess I can't say we anymore, they are a fundraising group. And depending on the projects, they have been raising money. There is the rink project that's still outstanding, so that's the number one priority when that happens. But it's a continually fundraising group. So, for example, if there was maybe something where the committee could, the funding comes in where it's going to fund 75% of the project, depending on the amount, maybe it's a $10,000 project. Maybe the committee, there could be a discussion there that the committee could bump in some additional funds. Don't write it all in your Bibles, because it's not like there's $100,000 sitting in the kitty, but there's some conversations I think you'll see coming forward in the winter regarding buying a new coffee making system that's into the thousands of dollars that the Recreation Committee is going to discuss purchasing and donating there. So you're now eliminating all of these humongous big metal 100-cup carfés that are then in turn blowing breakers. So we're looking at, a system like this, but a commercial type system.
Yes. There's a lot of those available.
And as you know, Mary, you go to make 100 cups of coffee, you've got to perk that an hour. It takes an hour. So this system would, you could do 100 cups in 5 minutes for these large dinners and weddings or whatever. And it wouldn't be something that would be hidden away in the shed. It would be available for use for
Yes, there are a lot
for
of
rentals,
com-
for
yeah, There are a
whatever.
lot of companies out there that do service them, and
Yeah.
and their rates are very.
I can't say it's a
They're
thing.
not
It's a
substantial.
conversation that's
Yeah.
occurring, but you'll see some resolution on that in January or February as to whether the committee's going to proceed with that. But that's the purpose as well. There's a reason we're fundraising. It's to help contribute to add-ons. The committee isn't going to replace the electrical wiring in the building, but it's add-ons and extras that maybe wouldn't be budgeted for through tax dollars. Anyway, so just to throw that in there.
Councillor Micah. Any
Yeah.
other comments on yes, I'm sorry.
You were first?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
To Chair Plank. A question here on, I love the digital sign, which is not there yet, but the location is there. But every time I drive by there, I look at the old sign and the structure, and I love it. I mean, I really love the stonework and all that. Is there any way we can keep that part, of course the top would just take it out, And, cause there was some work put into it, it's, you know, well crafted. I guess the question here is it against the law nowadays to have it that close to the highway? Cause I know the reason we did the new sign was because of setback, true or false?
So it's, I don't know, because if we take off the cube, it's not technically a sign anymore, so it wouldn't fall under the MTO sign policy, probably. As it is right now, under the sign policy, it's on their property, we shouldn't have it there. So that's why the new sign wasn't, you know, originally we would love to have put it exactly where the cube is now. That's why it's set back, because it has to be a couple meters in from our property line, so we did have it surveyed and all that fun stuff. So I would have to look into that and to see if it was allowed, if you wanted to remove the cube and just have the stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I'm looking at is it's not gonna be a sign, but it is, I guess,
It was an
a monument of
expensive-
some
It was
kind.
It was expensive and it was paid for by
And
tax
it's,
dollar
yeah, and
money.
exactly, and
But
it's,
the-
and it's
yeah.
craftsmanship, that's, you look at that structure, well done. And was it the Lions Club? I don't know.
No,
if
it was
anybody
the
knows.
taxpayers of Madawaska
okay.
Valley that paid to put that
Oh,
in.
okay.
So the question is, why would we leave the cube there and what would we use it for besides being,
Yeah, yeah, well, that's
you
the
know,
thing.
I
that's
think-
the thing
Up
too.
for
that
discussion
when
maybe?
it
I don't
comes down to it, why would we leave it there? Yes,
If I understand what you're saying is, want to remove the cube, but just leave the base,
Yeah.
because it has the logo on each side,
Correct.
and maybe just do something at the top with the logs, is that what I'm?
With a log, yeah, maybe add some to it, but I'm just
Maybe you have to
saying,
But
remove
is
it
there-
first to view
well, yeah, I'm
what's
not sure,
left?
because I'm not sure, you said it's on the highway property, right?
It is technically, yeah,
Yeah,
because
so-
it's- our connecting link begins a
Right
couple
there,
meters down the
yes.
road, so we are still on MTO.
And how do they feel about it?
I don't know, so it was my thought that we would probably remove the entire structure, but if that's not,
I think maybe we need to
Councillor Mika
ask the
said that.
operations manager.
I would suggest we have a conversation after, like, about the future of that.
Well, see, and here's my concern. If that has to go, the Lions Club has their own
Their own structure. too.
cement structure that's right next to it. So if one goes, the other has to go too, if it's illegal.
if, you know, the MTO wants to knock on their door, and yeah, it's kinda, I think it's a bit out of our,
Jurisdiction.
okay,
Yes,
I'm
Captain.
looking at, there's some conversation, thank you very much, Hillary, is that, that's all I'm asking here, is let's not, go tear it down.
You're right.
Let's have some more discussion. If it ends up that it's gonna be tore down, you know, with a decision at this table, I have no problem with that, but I think, we should kinda revisit, maybe do some investigating with MTO and so on, and can we just sort of leave it there?
Also too, is it possible to remove it and place it somewhere else within the municipality for something else?
I believe it's.
The stone.
It is
It's a
structured,
giant-
yeah.
There's a
It's-
cement.
Yeah.
There's nothing,
Cement.
once you take it apart, that's it.
Oh, yeah. That has to be jackhammered.
Yes.
But it is I agree with Councillor Schulis, it's a nice structure, and I think we need to have some conversation on it, because I was looking at it during the Santa Claus Parade, and if the top portion came off, there may be some other uses that it could be used for, you know, even,
A sculpture of a
Yeah.
hockey player and a figure
and
skater.
again, I don't know
Yeah.
what would be required from MTO if we're changing, you know, the use from one thing to another. They may have some objections to it, but we should at least explore and see what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Is the issue with that sign with MTO, is it a property issue, or is it a sightline issue, or is it a driver's distraction issue? Because those are all classed, right? That's what they're classing it off. You can't just put a sign anywhere. It's
Yeah, so
either
it's the-
property, sightline, distraction,
It's on the
right?
That's all. I'm
So it
looking
is,
about.
just based on the sign policy I have from the MTO, there's very specific types of signs that can be kind of on their property with those first couple meters from the road. And so we couldn't have put a digital sign, an interchangeable sign on that highway kind of buffer there, and that's why ours is set back. I don't know if we would have been able to build that sign today. So, yeah, so it'll take some investigating on my part to understand.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. Yes.
Just about this report in particular, we did receive an inquiry this morning. I did have a request from Hannah Demagala inquiring about being a delegation at today's meeting. So we did explain the procedural bylaw. So unfortunately, you have to request the delegation ahead of the agenda. But I think you did reach out
Yeah, I did reach out, and I just, asked if I could clarify anything on the report outside of council meeting. And she was just interested in expressing her opinion on a new library space, and that's something that she feels strongly about.
Okay, so the email just stated that, just wanted to state her support of looking for a new location for the library, which is spoke about in the report, and just wanting to inform council in that I know this is a report for information, but the sooner council knows what community thinks, the better. So just wanted to voice her kind of her opinion on that. And we will forward the procedural bylaw, just because that is why we do the council and committee, so that people have an opportunity to do a delegation. And we do have the 2 weeks before a report is approved for somebody to come to speak to that as well.
Mayor Wilmer.
Yeah, and you may want to direct Hannah to the library board. They do have, as I said, a building committee, which she might want to become active on. I think they could use more volunteers, and she, I think, has a planning background, so she might be very useful on that committee.
Thank you. Regarding the Cumberland Recreation Center, yes, those are good plans, and I like the idea of doing it in sections as necessary through grants and stuff like that, and fundraising.
And it's functioning now,
And,
but
I think being closed down so much in all the communities over the last few years, attending and being at some of the events in the last little while, people really want to be out at stuff. So it's a very positive step forward to that. So.
did you like doing dishes?
Yes, I love doing dishes.
Councillor
General-
Blank had some experience doing some dishes. I think you'd probably appreciate a dishwasher.
Oh,
System,
no.
whole
Oh,
lesson.
no. Oh, never, never. Okay, on to general updates. Anything else on those items, or can we go ahead to general updates? Hannah, thank you.
Perfect. So we had the grand reopening of the PJY on November 20th. Great crowd, lots of positive feedback. Everyone's happy to get out there. In the same vein, we do have public skating. It's commenced for the season. Almost every Sunday until end of March, as well as a couple special dates around March break and the Christmas holidays for the kids. And we have a full slate of sponsorship from local businesses and organizations. So we're very grateful for the support we continue to receive there. We've completed a grant application for Canada Day funding from the federal government for 2023. I did reach out to committees to kind of put that grant together. The health unit completed inspections at the PJY and at Cumberland Community Center. The inspections went well, and just some small things we'll make adjustments to, but we continue to be compliant. Rink board advertising is incoming. This was a part of our new boards at PJY. We do have the ability to put advertisements on our boards. We are hoping to put 5 to 10 ads this year at $400 per year with a 3-year commitment. Year one is to be cost recovery, and it covers the cost to create and install that ad channel. And then the years 2 and 3 will be revenue generating for the facility. And schedule of fees is being reviewed by staff for facilities, rentals, advertising, user groups. And then, as I mentioned before, we have a policy for advertising with the digital sign, the boards, any other type of advertising we do that will be brought forward for your review in the new year.
Good, thank you. Some questions regarding, I know you have a full calendar, you showed me the calendar of bookings for the arena, which is great to see. And I've been asked a few times about Boxing Day rentals. Can you speak to that?
Yep, so we are accepting Boxing Day rentals. We did have a few requests from community members. We were waiting until we had a minimum of 3 hours of rentals, because it does require staff being paid at, I believe, double time, almost to it. And, we just wanted to make sure as well that we had the staff who were willing to work, because a lot of people have family obligations that day, but we do have staff that are interested in working that day, so we have been taking bookings for Boxing Day.
Okay, good. And just so we know that as recreation is extremely important in all areas, and staffing for recreation facilities, they work when everybody else plays. So I think that we need to keep that in mind, that we are a service community and the recreation will serve the people. So we should be open on these times when there is, that is part of the whole
It's
program.
not an option.
It's not
You're
an
assigned to work, you work. End of story. So,
Okay,
can I?
Yes, go ahead.
So on the issue.
Councillor Michael.
Thank you. We're talking about rinks. I see nothing here as far as an update on the Cumbermere outdoor rink. So I'm not sure, to clarify, who's in charge of making sure whatever, that's gonna be open, flooded, open, ready to go for the Christmas holidays with the assumption we get the weather that we can do. We can't make a rink if there's no weather. So whose responsibility? Number one, whose responsibility?
So that would fall to the facilities staff, so it would be.
But who's the
Stuart,
manager in charge of that?
Either Stuart or Andy would be.
Okay, because that's number one. We need to know who is in charge, because it's their responsibility. So, for the record, I am making a list right now, because I've been down this road 100 times before. Pending the weather, so number one, we need 10 to 15 centimeters of snow. The roads department needs to pack it with the packer, with the thing, that's number one. We need to coordinate with the fire department. They will lay down the first layers of water. So somebody needs to be, are somebody taking notes? Because somebody needs to contact the fire department and coordinate that and have that available. Jamie needs to be available for Christmas holidays, period, end of story, that's his job. And right now, because there's time right now, that rink shack needs to be cleaned. It needs to ensure that everything is up and running inside the rink shack. Furnace is working, we need propane, we get propane, we make sure water is working, we make sure it's cleaned, all of the above. And number two, the Zamboni. Has the Zamboni been maintained? We've serviced it, the oil is checked, the blades are sharpened, the gas is filled up, the tires are pumped full of air, whatever. And a run through of the flooding equipment in the shed thing to make sure that's ready to go as well.
It's my understanding that it has been serviced, the Zamboni or the ice resurfacer, but this is, I think, in the facilities realm of things, so it isn't something that I have direct.
Okay,
info
so
from.
who here can speak to Stuart and make sure each one of them points are checked off by the end of this week to the middle of next week, and that we are ready to go like that if we get the snow? Because the kids have missed out so many years in a row because the ball has been dropped and that rink is not open over the Christmas holidays when it should be.
Also, there's the arena, the outdoor arena here at Papa J. Madawaska as well. And a lot of people are interested in wanting to know what's happening with that as well. So in conjunction with Councillor Micah's requests, do you have anything to say on that, Hillary? Or?
Correct, yeah. So we're gearing up for about next week, 14, 15, but the weather isn't cooperating.
No, I mean, you can't, but
Oh,
you,
yeah,
if, you
yeah.
gotta have everything lined up and ready to go at the drop of a hat. We can't not do everything first.
right.
And then all of a sudden it's Friday night and we get 15 centimeters of snow and now everybody's taking off for Christmas holidays. And there goes the rink for and we can't, it needs to be prepped and literally ready to go. If we get the weather, great. If we don't, well, we're not dropping the ball on our responsibility because we can't make it be cold and snow, but.
Okay, Sue,
I just want to add, so in the future, like in January now, the facilities and parks manager, Supervisor Stewart will be coming to council as well with a report. We had insisted that the priority was getting the ice surface ready.
Oh, for sure.
And
That's
so
why I
that
never
was
brought it up.
That was the priority.
That's running now, so let's move on into
But
the.
he as well has access to the reports on iCompass, so we'll be bringing like a monthly update to the Recreation Committee every month as well.
Thank
So just for the future, so that you know that that's
But it
happening as well.
it's
Nope, I
December.
realize that. Yeah, I realize that.
I don't wanna have this
Councillor Schulis.
conversation in January.
Councillor Schulis.
Oh, yeah, it's you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Micah and also Councillor Blank with the outdoor rinks and that. Just one question here, is there a rink committee in Kamamere?
No,
No.
No, okay, so that's, yeah.
It's paid
really-
staff.
It's on this end that.
it's paid, yes,
somebody-
just like the arena is.
Somebody
There's
has
no
to be
arena committee.
in charge, yeah, same thing with, well, Hillary, you do the outdoor rink, or at least you oversee it, right? But in Kamamere, yeah, like if you don't have, or do not take the opportunity of good conditions and not have a rink,
Yes.
people in the community have to question this. So we need.
And they do,
That's right, so, and especially if you can get it together for Christmas. Or the
absolutely.
Christmas weekend, that is. So
Depends on what the
anyway.
weather is at
Yeah,
Christmas.
Yeah.
there's no expectation of an outdoor rink if it's,
Yeah. yeah,
Zero
so-
every day.
Yeah, so if there's not a committee.
and we need snow.
then-
You have to have a base of snow
Yeah.
packed or you can't make
Good.
the ice.
That's for you. Okay. Anything else on the general updates? So no resolution is needed, just a recommendation that we receive the information as information.
Yep.
Thank you. And correspondence and information, request for donation from Valley Lakers Broom Ball. I'll ask the CAO to read the resolution.
Thank you. Through the chair, you'll need a mover and a seconder that council approve the charitable organization rental fee of $20 per hour for Valley Lakers Broom Ball for the use of the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center for a fundraising dance, and that council direct the Recreation and Community Development Coordinator to explore usage and different options for groups that receive reduced rates for the 2023 Schedule of Fees bylaw.
Thank you. And to speak to that, Hannah, I would like to speak, you asked you to speak to the idea to explore the usage and different options for groups, because right now there's some controversy over what groups do get discounts and what do not, and I think you've been looking at that, have you not?
Yeah, so we do have a charitable, so we have our regular fees, and then we do have a charitable organization rate that applies if someone does a request for donation, and then they ask of council if they can have that rate. The reason that it's recommended here is because we have had user groups for PJY in the past, this season, this ice season, receive the charitable organizational rate to have a fundraising dance. So, you know, it's the same thing, so my recommendation was that we apply the same rule to all user groups. Yeah, so.
Okay. Because I question sometimes the validity of some of the people that say they are a charitable organization. Yes.
I think though in this case, and I agree with you on that comment, sometimes you don't really know what the charity is, but what I like with this one, I know they're not a big user, but they do rent the ice once a week, and I think that's important when we're looking at them, that we look after our users, because what they save at the dance, they'll probably spend more on ice later on anyway, and we need to encourage these groups to make as much use of that facility as possible. So in this case, I do support it, but I do agree with what you're saying, yeah.
I also think that we should get some youth broom ball going as well. I think that's something that we need in our community as well.
There is.
How much?
Is it all falling apart? There was a Wilno team, there was a Cumberland team, they had a league.
Youth.
They were, when I was a kid, I played, I'm not sure how active.
Yeah, there's nothing right now, yeah.
We played
So
on
these are
outdoor
all-
rinks, so. I'm not
So
sure.
these are all things that I think our community needs to look at, our communities, as well as, I know that we are not responsible for the Wilno outdoor rink. However, there is money given to them, correct? And I have no idea who's in charge of that now and what's going on there. But people from that end of the municipality are also concerned as to what and where they will be able to do things.
I will say that the Wilno broomball team do regularly use PJY for tournaments and stuff they did last year, so we regularly received requests from them for ice.
The application by this last group was quite well presented, and it was a good one. And okay, so do we have any more discussion on that, or can we get for somebody to move and to second? Moved by Mayor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist, thirded by
Sorry, I didn't see your arm.
thirded by all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Okay, and then we have a request for donation, Bearsby Recreation Committee. Request for donation, approve the free use of the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center for Bearsby Recreation Committee's annual New Year's Eve skate. I've heard a lot of positive things about this. New Year's Eve, that family can skate, and then after that the youth can skate, and I think it's something very positive for us, for families in the community on New Year's Eve. So the recommendation, we don't need a resolution? Or we
Yeah,
need a-
yes.
we need
Yeah,
a-
we
Yeah.
do.
I'll move.
You move, okay, it's moved by Councillor Micah, seconded by Councillor Olszewski, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And for the record, just want to make sure that, so what you moved and seconded was that council approved the free use of the Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center ice for the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee's annual New Year's Eve skate.
And I'd also like to remind everybody that there's karaoke tomorrow night at the Legion at 7 o'clock.
Yes, there is, yeah.
Hillary's going.
I'm not going
He's gonna
because
sing
I'll be
some
forced to sing.
Stomp Tom.
Don't want to hear me sing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Thank you
Mayor.
very much.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, I think we will take a 5-minute break, and but just 5 minutes, and we'll resume with the planning matters and statutory meeting under the Planning Act after that. All right.
I'll move to recess.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Blank.
All in favor?
Carried. All right, so right now I'll take over as chair as we deal with both planning and then finance following. So we have a number of reports in planning, and we'll start with 11.11 November Building Statistics Report. Luke, do you want to go through that, please?
Sure, thank you very much. Yeah, attached to the planning section of the agenda is a building update. It has some statistics in there just for council's information. I think we can just maybe improve, if possible, some of the reporting. This is prepared through our building department city reporter. That's what our chief building official uses for his inspections. And it populates this report, but for example, under single detached dwellings, under this period, it lists 3, but those are actual septic systems. They're not single detached dwellings valued $22,000 in total, because that doesn't make sense.
3 or 5?
Well, 5 is in 2021. If you
Oh,
notice.
right, sorry, I'm sorry, yeah, yep.
Yeah, so I think, I haven't got into this yet, but maybe there's just a coding with the city reporter that we can break that out, so it's just maybe some more meaningful information. Because right now, for whatever reason, it's that number 3 is coming up as single detached dwellings, which is not accurate. For November of 2022, I can report though that there was no permits for single detached dwellings issued, but so far this year we're up to 35. So that's which is a good count for the municipality as a whole. And our year-to-date valuation is it's higher than 2021 for this period. So a busy year in building.
Okay.
Any questions on the report?
So those 35 single detached dwellings in 2022, are they rural, or are they village water sewer hookups, or?
I don't have that information.
Okay, just curious.
And that's, I will, without promising anything, I will look into the ability to find out the location, generalized locations, because it could be interesting, and it's something I've thought about in previous capacities to see where the growth is coming from. So a very good comment, and I will look into that.
That's great, excellent, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, then we'll accept the building permit statistics as information. The next report, 11.12, is an update on Bill 23. Luke, could you go through that, please?
Thank you. So council's probably heard of Bill 23 either through myself as well as it got lots of media attention. I even noticed that there was some protests in Toronto the other day I saw on the news, so people are taking it, pushing back on some of the components. Bill 23, there was lots of changes in that one bill, not just to the Planning Act. Conservation authorities were really struck down with their capacity. A number of regional governments with the stroke of a pen were absolved of all their planning duties, which is a very significant action as well by the province. In regards to Madawaska Valley, probably the most significant is what it means for zoning within our municipality and housing. Always the province and the Ford government has been big on getting houses built with their own unique way of doing things. Bill 23 is one of them, which now, as I mentioned in my report, as a right, an individual is allowed 3 dwelling units on their property. So through that, we will have to update our zoning to accommodate that. There still needs to be standards associated with this, but at the end of the day, it has to be permitted. But as I noted in my report, this only applies to properties on both water and sewage services. But at the same time, second dwelling units in rural areas are also an important land use for people, and not mandated, but we can certainly have conversations about permitting second dwelling units in rural areas. But it doesn't have to be the 3 that's mandated under Bill 23. But also, interestingly, what I put in my reports, it could become in the form of second dwelling units at a basement apartment, but it could also be a standalone triplex or a duplex as well. And I have had some sniffs through emails about people curious about that already in our community.
Okay.
So,
Councillor Micah?
So just on that, three dwelling units, how does that relate to lot size? Like how you know, I'll use my house for an example, because I live right in the village. So we have our house, it's on Drohan Street, clearly, I mean, actually, it's a pretty decent sized lot considering, but if we were to look at 3 dwelling units there, how does this, you still have to deal with property line setbacks, et cetera. So is the detail, is it just, you can have 3, like how do we make sure that if you know, you don't wanna overbuild on a lot. That's the part of the issue too, because is there parking requirements, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna have 3 dwelling units, you gotta have enough room for cars to park. You can't have, you know what do you understand what I mean? It's
Yep.
not the actual fact that there's 3 dwelling units. It's all of the things that go along with that. So how does that, is that what we would be
Yes.
talking about to accommodate?
Yeah, so I'd like to move forward with some zoning standards for these types of developments, if you will. Parking will certainly be
I mean, that's a
factor.
huge issue in the village, right? We can't,
Lot area is usually not a significant concern when you're connected to municipal services, as opposed to private services. You need to accommodate your well and septic system. Lot, and then what you were saying, overdevelopment, an important consideration is lot coverage.
that's what I
And
mean.
that's what speaks
Yeah.
to, so we have that parameter in our zoning bylaw, lot coverage, it's 33%, which is fairly high. And it's something that can be considered if you want in your spare, you know, consider what 33% means for a property and whether that value needs to be adjusted. And sorry, I shouldn't say it's not 33% across the board, but it depends if you're connected or not. But we can, that's an important parameter when judging if a property is overdeveloped, if there's too much buildings and structures on the
Yeah,
county lot.
yeah, because I think that is an important, runaway building isn't, I mean, there's, once it's there, it's there. And, you know, I think it's good that you can develop, I mean, to me, I see nothing wrong, I think of Happy Days, right? Fonzie lived over the garage, there's nothing wrong with a garage, above garage, I mean, really, I'm just joking when I say that, but I don't see anything. You could have your home, a basement apartment, and an apartment above a garage, but does the lot size accommodate that? And is there sufficient parking? Because what we can't have is all these additional dwelling units and then cars parked all over the road because there's nowhere for them to park in a driveway.
I couldn't agree with
For
you more.
multiple different reasons, and snow removal being one of the
It really
biggies, you
changes
know?
the character of the street when you have the
Yeah.
cars.
Yes.
over.
Yeah.
And Luke, those
yeah.
are the sort of things you'll be dealing with in the zoning,
Yes.
in looking at the zoning, okay, because I think that's something that's very important. Also, what about, I mean, when we're talking about a lot like Shelley's, if you're meeting the 33%, do we have height restrictions
Yes,
too?
that's
Because
important.
that's the other thing we've got to look at too, and make sure that everything, the buildings or the building fits the area and is compatible with the neighborhood uses.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so otherwise, these triplex units would be in typically like a residential 3 zone for the higher density, and they would have their own height. But speaking to make sure they're compatible, usually with traditional zoning, you kind of separate these uses and you put like if you're planning a little subdivision, you'd have like a cluster of maybe some attached houses here and put your singles over here. Well, now that's not the case anymore,
No.
so right in the middle of maybe some single detached dwellings, you would have a different dwelling unit type, so there, you know, that's part of this.
Are we able to put a height restriction in?
I will,
Like, you could allow the 3 units this way, but not 3 stories that way.
yeah, these are all things I think that certainly we can, like, I'd like to move forward quickly with a draft bylaw that we can put on the table and have some discussion about. What's important is you can't be mandated to do something and then zone everybody out of this use. You can't
That's right.
simply,
Yeah.
You know, something outlandish that would then limit that, so that's not what we wanna approach this either. But these are all things that, you know, I'll put down a chart about what the current height is, for example. I don't have in front of me a triplex as it stands now in the community, and we'll see what that looks like.
Okay.
Yes, because there is the one just down the street on Bay Street. I'm not sure if that's a triple,
All right,
three-story.
Luke, do you want to carry on with your report?
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, this is for information
Yep.
for council with the Bill 23. I'm just scanning it. If there's anything else anybody wants to talk about, I guess that's what I'll speak to as far as that report.
And the commentary from the Ontario Professional Planning Institute is good too, to read through. There's good information in there. All right, are there any other questions on Bill 23? All right, if not, we'll accept that this report as information. Move on to item 11.13 and another bill, 109, and County Official Plan Amendment 35.
Thank you. Yeah, so, again, the provincial government is passing lots of bills related to development these days, and another one is Bill 109. For the most part, this comes into effect, as opposed to Bill 23 that we just spoke about, which is in effect on November 28th. Bill 109 comes into effect January 1st, 2023, at least for the application refunds. I've included this table in my report for council. And it's something else that we have to consider because, yeah, we'll have to move forward with applications in a timely manner. As I've mentioned, I also want to make council aware of OPA 35, which is Official Plan Amendment 35. That's being processed by the County Planning Department. They've rolled this out. We've had a few meetings with staff by Zoom, with planners across the county and other folks. So now they have a draft policy that they're bringing forward. I included that. There's a public meeting coming up to hold this. Their official plan amendment is also going to have to be changed slightly to account for Bill 23, so that came after, and there'll have to be some adjustments. But the long and the short of it is those application refunds. What we can talk about with council at a later date is official plan amendment 35 is moving forward in a direction where we can make mandatory pre-consultations, which is not in existence now. We can refuse applications if the people haven't done a pre-consultation. So that's what the county is enabling a municipality to do. We would have to pass a bylaw to enact that. And it's one of the biggest delays when applications, you know, a person may speak with their agents, their maybe a lawyer, planner, and they just come in and maybe doesn't have the information staff needs to bring it forward, or what I would recommend council to have enough information to properly address, and then we're left, we put the application aside for some time. So a pre-consultation would be nice, but that's just something that we can consider.
All right, any questions on the report? Councillor Olszewski.
Just one quick question, because obviously this isn't new. People are coming in and developing things or whatever all the time. I'm assuming that most of the people are coming in and speaking to you before doing anything anyway at this point in time. Are they not?
It depends. I've had to some extent. I've had one, for example. I had what I would call a pretty impromptu conversation with somebody about property, and the next is the formal application is in.
Okay.
So there's varying degrees of that, yes.
Okay. Because I understand the benefit of having it's helping everybody get all their ducks in a row and away you go, right?
Yes.
That makes sense, right? I'm just wondering, I figured that a lot of people who are doing things like that would already be coming to speak to you before they start, but apparently I'm not, right? So, if it was me, I'd come and speak to you before I started.
Well, and to that, and that's what it would be. It would be then, there would be a nice flow then, and I've started a pre-consultation form that's on our website that at least through that we can give a written, at least it's nice to track a written response, initial feedback, and then they can move forward with that. It doesn't happen all the time.
Okay.
But it would make sense for it to happen all the time, yes. Sue?
And I think our priority is, so if we have to give a refund because we couldn't meet the timeline because a developer didn't bring in everything at the time we accepted the fee, the ratepayer pays the difference. If we have to give that refund, we still had to pay for the lawyer and like all of the staff time to make that happen. So this ensures that when we say we've accepted your application, everything is there, so we can meet that 20 days or 15 days or.
Yeah, because the timelines are fairly short as they are to move things forward, but I get that people want to move forward with their applications. So.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this report? Good report. If not, we're accepting this as information again. And we do not have any other planning matters, so thank you, Luke. And we'll move on to finance and admin.
If I may,
Yes.
I was wondering if you wanted to give an update on the timelines for, you spoke to Watson, I believe.
Yes.
So we're bringing forward the meeting, the study that was asked from the previous council to bring the study for development charges. So that is coming, I believe, at the December 20th meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, so here's, for as far as development charges go, here's some timelines. We can send this in an email later today, this just came in. But what we're thinking about is, starting with the council workshop on December 20th. Okay, so Watson will show up and we'll just have a discussion about development charges. Releasing the background study that they've prepared, which now needs to be updated for Bill 23, that'll be released on December 21st, so the day after our council workshop. These are tentative dates, but it follows, there's timelines associated with it. A public meeting to be held on January 5th. That January 5th meeting, though, will have to be advertised on December 15th, which is even before the workshop, but to meet these timelines. And then after the public meeting on January 5th, we could be discussing a bylaw to enact the development charges as early as February 21st. So I will send those dates to council in an email. If we support those timelines, then the next would be basically the council workshop on December 20th for council to review and ask any questions.
Councillor
I
Mike Ebb.
I just want to, again, I'll express some concerns on this January 5th public meeting date. Council, presenting to council is, those dates are fine. I really am not comfortable with the January 5th public meeting date. It's right after Christmas. People are caught up. They're doing their thing. We know what happened when there was a public meeting called the first week of
January 7th will never be forgotten.
Right, and I think maybe that's lesson learned. If it was the following week with some advertising that week, and it was the following week, we advertised before Christmas, we still advertised that first week of January, and then have the meeting the following week. I don't want the perception in the public, and it will be there because memories are there, and it was not a pretty time in this municipality, that we would in any way be compared to that and say they're doing it again.
No,
Because
that's
people are very caught up with Christmas, they're caught up with a lot of stuff, and you can run a few ads before Christmas, and I'm telling you, I am absolutely totally against a first week of January
Right,
meeting.
I think that's a good point that we should take into consideration, because as Councillor Mike mentions, people don't generally see the notices that come out during the holiday time. I think also, if you're a teacher or work for the school board, you're still off that week. And so people could be away too. And so I think it would be good to perhaps move it back a week or so.
Just 1 week, I'm
Well,
not
that's-
suggesting months,
Well, it's a great time if everybody's together.
because we could
to
still
discuss.
hit that Wednesday advertising and then have it the following week.
Yeah, and quite often the paper shuts down between Christmas too, so.
It's not running an issue that week, I don't think.
Yeah, so we may want to look at all of those and take
Yeah.
that into consideration when we're setting up that
We
meeting.
we just don't want people to feel blindsided and that somehow we've pulled a fast one here. And I understand we want to facilitate this and move this forward. But I think it's just so important that that isn't the impression people have, even though that's not what we're trying to do in any
No, and
way, shape, or
I
form.
think we are moving it forward. We've put it right on the agenda for the beginning of council, and I think moving it back a week or so
Yeah,
for
maybe even
the
having it on the-
meeting is a good idea.
Have a
so.
Thursday night or something of that second
Sue.
week of January.
I just wanted to confirm, so when you say public meeting, was it not that after it's presented, it has to, public notice meaning it's out there for 60 days for the public?
Is it, well, let me, I don't, sorry, just a minute. I'd have to open the actual document to confirm those, because I
Okay.
don't, unlike the planning
Okay,
act, I don't have all the statutory times.
Okay,
in
so
there.
we'll confirm that, because
Okay.
I thought the February 5th meant that it would be out there for 60 days for public comment and review.
Oh, that's
And
totally
so,
different,
I just
Yeah.
want to confirm what that period is. I don't know if it's after that, or if that's what he was intending on January 5th.
And I think staff, if they could
Yeah,
review
we'll confirm
the
that. Yep.
timelines, but I think Shelley's point is well taken too. So,
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
all right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks very much.
All right, so we're now, thank you, Luke. We'll now move into finance and admin. Amanda, come on. Okay, and we'll start with item 12.11, which is the finance report for December 2022. Amanda, do you want to go through your report?
Okay. So I have a couple of items on my report. We'll go through them one by one. Just talk for the first part and then open the floor for discussion. So for the first item on the agenda, attached is your departmental revenues versus expenses report to November 29th, 2022. This is your report of all posted revenues and expenses for each department. The staff members are always encouraged to review their line items and question them versus the budget. So I have my iCity open. If you have any questions to specific line items, I'll try and get the information for you as quickly as possible. But if I'm not able to answer, I'll get back to you in either email version. Are there any questions from committee members?
All right, any questions from anyone on the revenue versus expenses? Councillor Micah.
Anybody? I'm back, Amanda. Okay, why don't we just start on page 1? And we'll start with the fun stuff, the revenue stuff. And minuses don't mean bad things on that line, right?
No, so through our new system, minuses are revenues.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so two big things on this that jumps out at me, and not in a bad way. Clearly, it's a good thing when you've exceeded your revenue projections. So if we look right in the first section, so it's under general rent, building, miscellaneous. So we budgeted 0 revenue, but in fact we've brought in $4,500. What building is that we're charging rent on?
So we received revenue from the parole office.
Ah,
So we
Very good.
leased out the parole office, but we received
Correct.
the rent.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
okay, I was
a
just
wash,
curious.
essentially.
Yeah.
And then take it to the next line where it's miscellaneous fees and services. So we anticipated 5,000, but we got 36,000. See, I love those lines.
So in the 2022 fiscal year, we received a rebate from WSIB.
Oh.
So WSIB decided they had a whole bunch of money in their bank account and decided to distribute
Right on.
this extra funds to the municipalities.
Is-
So we received approximately $22,000.
Wonderful. So is that just a
that
lottery
will
gift? Do we expect more of it?
Probably not.
Oh, well.
So those monies are being posted to the future sick and future employee benefits reserve line to then be distributed if we have any issues with, employee whatever, or if WSIB, which is going up annually, if we need to draw from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, okay.
All right. Keep going.
Okay, so let's right down to the bottom of that page. Now we're into expenses. So I just wanted clarification. I did get a copy. I did read the budget, but so when we go down to capital expenditure, not the reserve fund, but the expenditure itself, we budgeted 12,000, but we've got 0. Is that just because we're not finished yet? Like the year, like some of this stuff, I realize it's not year end, and the bills haven't come in or be posted. But was that a project that we were not doing this year, or?
That one is equipment.
Equipment purchase.
Yeah.
So that's.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm on the wrong line.
Yeah.
Yes, equipment purchase. So have we not bought what we thought we were gonna buy, or we just haven't paid for it yet, or what? I don't know what we were buying for 12,000.
Let me see if I can get into my. Sorry, this is not my laptop. I'm sorry, Councillor
Okay,
Micah.
that's
I
fine.
will have to get back to you,
But-
but it's likely something that was budgeted within the,
Was 12,000 not the amount that we had budgeted for the retrofit?
I think so,
And it
for
was
all
for
of the miking
this,
system.
And I think we ended
cameras.
up, it was modernization versus
Yeah,
the cost.
and we may have just actually put the total of the of the expenditure within the capital expenditure line.
Okay, so I'll take you to the next one where it is capital expenditure. So $276,000.
Yep.
What were we buying for $276,000 in the office? And we spent 62. Because that's over a quarter of $1,000,000. So what was the intent behind a quarter of $1,000,000?
Okay, so, we have within there our service delivery review,
As a capital expenditure?
yes, because it's over $5,000.
Okay.
Our asset management plan, development charges background study, our CGIS data, planning, and geospatial applications. So we were planning on doing municipal office, furnace, replacement and HVAC retrofit. So that has not happened this year.
So the intent would be to carry that over?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything within
Okay.
the capital expenditures lines comes directly from reserves and not part of the taxation operating budget. So monies that are not spent in the current year then just go back to the reserves to be applied for future capital budgets.
Okay, so we clear, and then going on to the next page under policing. So just, do we have to pay another installment, or is that 662,000 our final bill for the year?
No, there's going to be three, I believe they're always like three behind. The province's year end, fiscal year end, I believe is March.
Okay, so when do we know now, like we budgeted 892?
We
so
budget
basically
based on
900?
their statements, so
Yeah.
they tell us what
Yeah.
they're gonna
Yeah.
bill us.
Yeah,
So
so we should,
we're always like
okay,
on,
so,
yeah.
I'm just curious, because I've always said we basically spend $1 million, and I'm like, oh my God, don't tell me it's down. How's that possible? Great.
But they are going through a union deliberation, so we will see increases again. And then there is an OPP local board initiative. Yeah. But
Which
we
is
don't
gonna-
know what those costs are
Yeah.
going to be for the future, so.
And that happens in 2023, right? Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I got a lot of stuff highlighted here. I don't know if we want to do
May I
this
make a
today.
suggestion through the chair?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you wanted to just give the line items that you're questioning, to Amanda, while we go through the rest of the meeting, she can go and look at the detail, and bring it back before the end of the meeting.
You can, any counselor is welcome to come and see me if you have questions about any of
Okay,
these
well, why don't I
expenditures or
sit down with
revenues.
you then?
I can certainly give you the information.
And then, because that's at this stage, and I
Yeah.
mean, clearly when we're done the year and we have a budget in front of us and it's gonna show actuals.
Yeah.
At least I, at that stage, have some answers that I
Yeah.
don't need to
I
take
think that-
hours of time up questioning
yeah.
why we're over on lines,
It's
way
difficult
over.
for this council because you weren't part of the 2022 budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So Councillor Micah, I think that would be a good idea
Okay.
to sit down with Amanda and then
Sure.
bring anything back to council if you've got some concerns.
Okay.
You know.
And
Can I-
actually, if you just wanted to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
If you
Yeah.
just then forward an email to
Just
the other
summarize it.
council members saying,
Yeah.
these are the clarification points that I brought forward to Councillor Micah, then that, everybody will
Yeah.
get it.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine, that's fine.
All right, does anyone else have any items they'd like to discuss?
Okay, so I'll move on to item number 2, the OMPF, which is our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. It is the largest transfer payment that our municipality receives from the province. It's made up of a bunch of different grants, so we are successful in 3 different grants. The Assessment Equalization Grant, the rural communities grant component, and the northern and rural fiscal services grant component.
So it would be page 135,
Okay,
sorry, starting at page 134.
thank you.
So this is like an equalization grant, essentially, where the province looks at key main indicators such as your household income, employment rates, percentage of population aging, and then what are the median levels within the province, and then based on their calculations, either increase or decrease for the municipality. So in 2023, we will be receiving a $10,900 increase from 2022. So that does sound good, but that means that our key indicators may not be as great as the rest of the province.
Exactly.
Which means our household debt could be higher, unemployment rates higher, and average earnings could be lower than the rest of the province of the area. So, and then there's always been discussions in the past 3 to 4 years that the province is not wanting or are looking at changing this OMPF grant, and what that looks like we don't know. So we have been, through our associations, been warned that we could substantially lose out on our grant, or we could substantially gain on our grant. What things have been looking like within the province is that the government in power has been taking more away from the larger cities and been providing a little bit more to the small, more rural communities. So that's good for us, but right now we don't know. So hopefully we will be able to continue with our OMPF grant, because it is very substantial to help us offset our budget.
Amanda, has the government provided any timelines on when they may be making changes, or is it just sort of a rumor
No,
at
it's
this
just sort
point?
of rumors at this point. So, when we attend association meetings and whatnot, they just kind of give us heads up if you could, save a little bit more in your operating reserves, kind of bump them up every year a little bit more so that you're prepared should something come down that, we have a slash and burn type of situation with this fund, so.
Okay.
Can I just,
Councillor
because
Micah?
I'm just a little bit confused. So OMPF funding, you're being warned that it could be decreasing.
It could be decreasing.
Could, or staying the same or
increasing.
whatever.
Go up,
Or
right.
go up, yeah.
So, so we get that stream of funding,
Yes, we do.
and that number is what? Just because I'm gotten,
So for
I'm-
2023, it's 1,627,000.
okay, so that's great.
Page 134.
Yeah, I saw that. But I'm confused on, then there's the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So that's OCIF.
That's OCIF.
And then we've got the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support NORDS. So so we've got 3 funding streams coming in,
Okay, so
or no?
in OMPF, it's made up of, what we're receiving is made up of the Assessment Equalization Grant, the Rural Communities Grant component, and the Northern and Rural Fiscal Circumstances Grant component. OCIF is totally different, a different stream of the Ministry of Infrastructure.
Right, so is that money, like, does it flow, or that's what we have to apply for?
No, it just comes to us.
Okay, so we're getting OMPF funding of 1.6.
Correct.
What are we getting through OCIF plus NORDS?
We do not know what we're getting.
Oh, we
for
don't know
OCIF
yet. Oh, okay.
Because they are, so further down on my report in part 3, I just talk a little bit about OCIF, which is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. And that's funding that has to be applied to major capital assets like roads, bridges,
Yeah.
water, wastewater, sewer,
Yeah.
recreation. And the province has decided that they are going to restructure how they determine how much money we get from OCIF. So it's going to be based on our historical, sorry, it's a lot to remember here. Okay, it's based on our asset management plan reporting, which is the historical costs of our assets. So, but they haven't given us what the formula or the calculation is.
Okay.
But the Ministry of Infrastructure has said, in order to smooth the process out for the next year, so that municipalities are not heavily hit, we will expect to receive either minus 15% or plus 15% of what we previously received.
Okay. And then this north, because this is, I don't know if this has come in since I've been here, Northern Ontario Resource Development Support.
We don't get that.
Oh, we don't get that, okay. I was curious about that, because I thought, I didn't think we were classed as Northern. Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying. And just off the top of your head, do you know what we got in OCIF funding last year? Doesn't have to be to the penny.
It's around 200,000.
Okay.
It's significant. You know, it helps us to pay for
Oh, for
a
sure.
large
Road.
roadway network project.
Okay.
Okay. Any
That's
other
great.
questions?
Thank you. I just
on-
was a little bit confused, so thanks.
Any other questions on item number 2? Okay, let's move on to,
All right, number 3, so COLA, cost of living allowance and budgetary guidelines. So, because this is a new council, I really need to feel out where you're at, thoughts. So typically, the practice of the council has to approve a cost of living allowance at the beginning of the year for staff, which is applied to the council remuneration bylaw and the non-unionized staff wage grid. So we have unionized and non-unionized. And it's based on the Bank of Canada's CPI inflationary index. So I have provided the past 5 fiscal years and what the increase has been. So right now, inflation is sitting at about 6.8%, which is not something that the municipality can stomach applying to wage grids. So I am looking for some discussion from the committee members as to what a reasonable assumption, if any, for 2023 for cost of living allowance for the wage grids. Also, this then ties in with our budget for 2023. We have tried to stay within whatever our assessment growth has been around, the 1.5 to 2.5% area. I do not have our assessment growth impact report from MPAC yet. It has not been released. So, not saying that this would be what we would stick with, but is there a ceiling that staff can work with to then build the budget and then present to committee members for discussion and move up or down? So I am requesting 2.5% COLA and a 2.5% ceiling for the budget. So any discussion from that?
first of all, I think this year is 2023 is going to be a very difficult year in calculating anything. As you say, we're at about 6.85% inflation right now. However, the predictions are that it'll drop during the second half of this year.
That's right.
It's not going to go back down to 2 or less, anything like that. So I think when we're making a guess, and that's all it is a reasonable guess at what it is, I think the 2.5% is reasonable for this year, for both the COLA and the budget ceiling. So that's just my thoughts on it. And I think, again, as I said, it's a very difficult year to predict anything as far as where it's going to go. And but if you listen to the so-called experts, they do say that the inflation will start to ease off a bit during the second half of this year. Any comments, questions?
Yes.
Councillor Blank.
For the 2.5 for COLA, what amount are we looking at?
So 2.5 would be $48,059. That would be applied to the non-unionized wage grade. And then to the council remuneration, that would be $2,911.
And just for, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Micah.
For the sake of new members of council, unless it's changed, the COLA increase is not a 2.5% added on to each individual salary level. Or has that changed? Because when we were here, when I was here before, adding 2%, if you make 100,000 or you make 20,000, it's again, the highest paid are getting the biggest portion and share. So what we did before was that it was equally distributed. Is that still the case, or?
No, it's applied to each, it's applied to the wage grid, which then affects, if you started at the start, then it affects.
So when did
each
that
step.
change? Because that was something very specific when, in my day, that we said, once again, the top earners are making far more than the bottom earners, because if it's based on a percentage of salary,
I'm not sure.
2014 is when the wage grid was there.
Yeah, it was before I came on council, so it's
It's
going
not
back.
previous to that.
Yeah.
Because it's the upper end of the scale that receives the benefit
that's
over
right.
the ones
and
that are on
that's
the
why
lower
we
end.
changed it, and we said
Or
it's
it should
a,
be
it's a
the
lump
other way
sum
around.
Yeah, it should be
payment.
the other way
If you're
around.
giving it out, it should be
Distributed.
the other way around.
That's right, you take the 48,000 and divide it by 10 people, or 12 people, or 15 people, or whatever it is, and everybody gets X amount of dollar check.
Because if you are handing out money, it isn't the people at the upper end of the pay scale. You know,
Yeah.
yes, they're going to feel it, but they aren't going to feel it as bad as the person at the bottom, right? So if we're looking after anybody, you have to look after the person at the bottom, not the person at the top. Sorry, Sue.
So, oh no. All I know is the wage grade is there for pay equity.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we bring in.
Yeah.
So that's a discussion as to the equality of your steps. So if you just add a number somewhere in the middle, all of your steps will end up not.
This is just a
Not
bonus.
working.
COLA isn't, we don't have to pay COLA. This is an option. Council can say we don't pay COLA. And you get when you get your annual review, keeping in mind, there is an annual review and each employee has possibility of merit increases. This is over and above.
No, absolutely.
So we can say there is no COLA, ever.
Yeah.
Or you pay it out as a bonus. And I don't see where it would impact the wage grid.
So I'm not sure you'd have to get that information from County Banker.
Yeah, if you choose to, so you're saying that you would just take each employee's gross wages and just pay it out as a bonus based on,
That's
you
a
know,
cost of
2.5%
living.
of their.
It's a cost of living bonus.
Yeah, that's up to the committee.
So
to
like,
decide.
yeah, so if we're, let's round it up to 50,000, just because it's easier to talk about round numbers. So there's 5 employees and there's 50,000, divide it by 5 employees and there, boom. Or you divide it by 10 employees or 15 or however, whoever's entitled to this. If there's 20 employees, it's 20 divided by 48,000 and this is how much each person gets, whether you're making this or whether you're making this. Full-time staff, not part-time.
Well,
I'm
see, and
sorry,
that's
what do you mean?
different.
No, it's not. Take your part-time and take your increase and divide it by 50%. They're part-time staff.
Sorry, can you explain that to me?
So
saying-
I'm a full-time staff, okay, so I'm full-time.
Yeah, yeah.
And this person is part-time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get 100%, they get 50%.
Oh,
Do you understand what I mean? Because they're part-time.
right.
I've worked in companies where I'm gonna be very honest, the benefit structures were completely set up that way. If you were a full-time staff member, you paid your full benefit contribution and you got access to full benefits back. If you were a part-time employee, you could pay in at a lower rate and you would get a lower rate back. So if you were entitled to $1,000 a year for glasses as a full-time employee, you would, you know, and then if you were a part-time, you were entitled to $500 a year because you were a part-time employee.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
And that was
it's the
major
committee's-
multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, it's the
So it's-
policies of the, the council, so currently our policy says that our, drug and health, benefits apply to full-time staff only and not part-time, so we can look at that policy if you wish to.
No, I'm only using it as an example.
Okay.
I'm definitely not trying to open that conversation up here.
Yeah, no, it's,
It was just a mathematical example,
So
that's
if
all.
I may, just for clarity, just for the action item moving forward and the request that you need to know. So you need to know to bring something back to council if 2.5 sounds reasonable. And if I'm hearing correctly, Councillor Micah would like options as to how that's paid out and how it's applied and what the impact is. Is that correct? Okay, so we can.
Just a question too, how did you come up with the 2.5 for your recommendation?
Basically, I just grabbed a number.
Grabbed a number.
Really, just looking at, for the COLA, just looking at, the numbers that we've applied previous, so in 2022 it was 3.4. The year previous it was 0.7. I guess I should have did an average, but I didn't.
I did, and it's 2.02.
There you go.
Oh, 2.02.
Thank you.
2.02, so if you take the 5 years divided by, like what you have there, would be 2.02 over 5 years.
This is just for discussion purposes. It's the committee's decision on how they wish to
Yeah.
proceed.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yes,
if
go
I
ahead.
can, right? Now this is just off of my top of my head, so everybody understands what I'm sort of thinking about it, right? And I understand that employees and that need money to live, right? And I understand that the price of everything has went through the roof, right? That's number one. But number two is, from a business point of view, when you see inflation rates really high and you see interest rates going up, what is happening? You're going into a recession. If you want to live, do you hand out money? Just here you go, here you go, here you go. No, you need to keep it here. That's my thoughts on it, personally, right? I understand that, but it's going to be hard on everybody. You go in a recession, it's hard on everybody. It doesn't just affect, at the end of the day, we can hand out money to make it easier, but is that actually solving the problem or making the problem worse, right? That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, and thanks. I'm going to go back and say I really do believe 2.5 is a reasonable guess this year. I don't think we're handing out money, but I think we've got to be fair. I'll wait and see what Amanda brings back. But, people in different jobs have different responsibilities, and normally the higher paid jobs have more responsibilities or more qualifications. And I'm going to disagree. I'm of the thought that if we're giving a cost of living increase, it should be equal right across the board, no matter what your salary is, because your job is based on, you're getting a salary because of the responsibilities or the requirements of that job. I think it's unfair to say, well, we're going to give you, 2.5 and we're going to give you 0.5%. I think it should be, when you're dealing with a cost of living allowance, it's right across the board. And when I look at other organizations on how they do it, that's how it's handled. So, again, Amanda, you can come back and look at some options, but my feeling is it's in fairness, it's something that all employees should get equally. All right, Councillor Blank.
Okay, I agree with that partially. Salary comparisons, when you look at the salaries of these municipalities in comparison to other municipalities, because that is a basis for it too, because where in previous jobs that I've had over, there was always those that deserved more but didn't get it, okay, because of the unions and everything else going along. So where are we in comparison with the salaries of those here to the rest of the municipalities in the county? Yes.
We can include that with that report, because I think the county yearly does like the whole 17 municipalities.
Because
and it does the
because
positions there.
if we are on the lower end of scale, I think there's something needs to be done. But if we're at the higher end, well, I think we have to be cautious.
Yes, that's something we can,
Okay.
I can
Thank
reach
you.
out to get like this, the comparator.
Yeah.
Because I believe if it's not every year, it's every 18 months that they will do that review.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So Amanda, what do you need from us on this today? Do you need anything more?
No, just
Just-
a direction. So I'll reach out to the county's HR department to see. I mean, if the committee chooses to just take a lump sum $50,000 and say split it amongst everyone, I don't know that negates any sort of employment law. But I would like to check. with
Yeah,
them.
Yeah.
that's the thing too. Yeah.
That's important
sure.
for pay equity
Absolutely.
purposes.
Yes,
no,
pay
for
equity
sure.
is something that
Yeah,
is
for
really
sure.
It's just pay
important.
equity concern, that's all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
three previous councils worked hard to get the wage grid and get your pay equity,
Yes.
your audits done and all of that,
Yeah.
so. we wanna
So
make sure we do
I
that.
will reach out and get some discussion topics, and we can go from there in January.
Okay, well, Amanda, if you
Yeah,
could.
because you don't need a decision today. This is
No,
for the budget.
this is just for
Yes.
discussion,
Something to start with, like the
but it's good to
council
have the discussion and it gives Amanda some idea of where we're coming from and she can perhaps get us more information.
Because in fairness to the treasurer, it's much easier to get a guideline in front of you to say, where do you want to start, knowing that you can go up or go down, so that she doesn't just guess and come in and then you say, how could you possibly think that we would even entertain this? So I think it's important. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Amanda.
You're not in trouble, Amanda.
No, I welcome the discussion.
Yeah.
It's good to know what everyone's thinking,
And
where everybody
it's good
sits.
good discussion and it's good to have great different ideas on it, so.
For sure, absolutely.
So, my understanding is, the committee, welcoming to us continuing building our budget at a 2.5% ceiling, and then when we present it, we can then work backwards, or you want.
Well, you needed some figure. You need a
I
figure
need-
to
you
go.
need-
You need a figure.
Yeah, you need a starting
Because
figure.
We don't wanna sit here at budget
No.
time for 2 weeks.
No.
No.
Right, so, if I can have something, if we have to cut reserves or service levels, like, that's where all of this comes to play.
I think for those who are new, remember this is just to start the discussions.
Yeah.
So I think using a 2.5 figure to start with is fine. It may not end up being a 2.5 figure, but I think you need a figure to sort of
work on.
suggest to department heads and staff as to where we're going to start from. Councillor Shelsky.
Why don't we start at 0, see what comes up with that, and then we can work from there, because it's easy to go up in life and it's very hard to come down.
I don't believe in starting at 0, but I think that will bring us back to the old ways of doing things where, so I would prefer to say at 2.5%.
So if I can, I agree with Joseph 100%. And
All right.
I will preface as to why.
Okay?
There will be growth. If the budget starts off at 0 and you're basically saying, look at last year's budget, and I don't want to hear that we're cutting services, because at 0%, we are not cutting one service. It is to tell the department heads to look at your budget and start cutting back where you can cut back on overspending, over budgeting, where it doesn't need to be, that you're padding budget lines with a little extra here and a little extra there. You look at what you did last year, and there is still growth that's going to come in, that we could use growth to fund a 1% increase in expenditures, not taxes, to increase the budget by 1%, 2%, 3%, and using growth to increase budget spends. That's what I'm looking at. Because this way, you're going in, we're going to argue to take it out, then we're going to put it back in, and I've done 8 of these budgets, and why as a municipality, when times are hard and our people, we are looking at the calculations from the province right here, telling us the incomes of our people here. We are lower. So why would we direct this organization? Absolutely. Start with a 2.5% increase in expenditures. Because Mark, since the day I've stepped through this office, this is how the budget's done. So when do you ever, it's just constantly up, 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 up. So start chopping, even though there's inflation, start cutting the waste.
I think when you get to the actual budget discussions, that's when you can start looking at
So
things
we're
to
already gonna
chop.
start arguing.
I just want to finish. I think at 2.5%, if you go down to a 0%, you're limiting people, because we know that the cost of living is at 6.8%. We're paying more. We've got supply issues. We're paying more for fuel. We're paying more for many, many different things. If you say we're going to start with a 0, we're not covering any of our increased costs.
No, it's putting responsibility on department heads to cut the fat.
Well,
is
that's
all I'm
that's
suggesting.
assuming, and you use the word padding their
are.
budget. I don't believe that.
I do.
I don't believe that, and I'll defend staff on that one. Councillor Olszewski.
I just want to put one more thing forward for the 0 thing. If we prepare a budget at 0, right? You look at it, you see shortfalls. Okay, how much do we have to increase it by to meet these shortfalls? If we just jump to 2.5, all of a sudden so-and-so, I wanna spend an extra 20,000 because we increased it by 2.5%,
right.
this,
But-
that.
but the
Start
two-
at zero, work with the zero, go with the zero. If there's a shortfall, we talk about increasing it afterwards.
That's right, and you justify it.
Exactly.
And you can look at it on the 2.5% and say, yes, when we look at each line item, well, we don't need to go up on that one, and we can reduce it then. I think it just makes it, a more, realistic budget. If you allow for that 2.5% or whatever, 2%, and then when you come budget time, you can look at each line and say, well, this one doesn't need to be increased 2%.
So in other words, you take this entire document, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and you plop in 2.5%,
No.
it just comes out.
Nope.
Every line, but yes, Mark, that is exactly the way it is.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely no. It may have been back in the day, Shelley, but it certainly hasn't been
God,
for a
I
while.
wasn't here that long ago.
No. All right.
I'm telling you, well, I'm putting a motion
Counselor-
on the table
Counselor-
right now that we have a zero, we start
Okay,
at zero.
Councillor Blank.
Okay, you can't start at a 0% increase. You cannot start at that. You have to have some basis because we know yourself. In your own home, your own budget, if you counted yourself at 0% right now, you're just fooling yourself. Okay? I would prefer to start towards the top, work our way down, see where things happen. I don't agree with the 2.5%. I do not agree with that. I think it's far too high. But I'm willing to look at the numbers, to discuss it, to see what we can do. I don't like that idea, and I don't think our taxpayers want us to be up in that zone. So, taking everything personal out of it, I think we as councillors should be responsible, look at a decent amount of figure, whether it's 2.5 or 2%, and go from there. I'd rather work down than work up. And I firmly believe that the information we are getting, because previously on council as well, I was faced with many of the same issues that you're discussing. Okay? So I think trusting in things have changed, and I think the professionalism of where we stand makes us deal with a 2% and then preferably work downwards.
Yeah, and that's really what I was trying to say, and thank you, Councillor Blank. And I could go down to a 2% to start with, but I think working down is the better way to do it. And it doesn't mean our budget will end at a 2%, but it allows us to see what the document looks like with a 2% increase, and then we can work it down in whatever way members of this council want to. Sue.
If I recall, and forgive me if I'm mixing it up with another municipality, I thought, at the last budget, did you have figures saying whatever number we started with, and to get to 1.5, you need to reduce by X amount of dollars. To get to 1%, you need to remove X amount of dollars. And to get to 0, you need to remove this amount of dollars. So you actually know the amount of money that it needs to be reduced to meet those thresholds. So as we're doing, and Amanda did a great job in the last few years, so that when you're doing the budget, as council is discussing those line items, she generates on the sheet right away where those reductions are and how much money it attributes to. So I think we can answer both of your concerns by saying, start that number, if it's 2.5 or whatever else, and still show how much you have to reduce to get to that 0.
How do we get down
So that
to
you know
that
exactly
0?
when you're looking at it, you know exactly, because I can't put 2.5, we can't put 2.5 beside hydro, for example. That one's going to have to be 5% increase. So it'll actually show you, so if you start at the 2.5, and it's not true that we go 2.5, you know what I mean? So I think, does that answer all of then your ask? Because then you know exactly what it is that you have to reduce.
I think we need more information in front of us.
And that's why it's budgeting. So that's why this is kind of, so that she can head out and start.
And I see your
That's
point.
what it's for.
I see your point,
Absolutely.
definitely see your point, because I don't, but I think we need some realistic figures to look at.
But we won't get
Is
the
that-
figures that's what she's asking for. She wants to go right now and start a budget at 2.5% increase.
And then,
Over
as
last
Sue
year.
explained too, that she'll be
Yeah.
going along and saying, okay, so you want to drop it by 1%, this is where it comes down. This,
comes
or
down.
drop
But
it
that
to
2.5, you do take into account assessment growth.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is taken into account.
So we're adding growth plus.
Councillor
a tax
Olszewski?
increase?
So just to be clear, Sue, on what you're saying, so basically, we'll be presented with a document that says, okay, this is with 2.5, this is with 1, this is with 0, right?
She's asking for the bottom
Yeah.
right now, so, and it'll show by department. Well, I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah.
You're the treasurer. She does a much better
So
job.
we'll present the document, what the need from the ratepayer is for taxation, and what that means to the ratepayer if it's 0%, 1%, 2%.
Okay.
We'll go through revenues, see where revenues are down or where revenues are up. I can tell you right now, metal sales are significantly down, almost $20,000. So that is a big loss. That's almost 1%. And then we will go department by department. And we'll talk through the line items if you wish to speak to them, where they're being impacted, and then what happens is the taxation is applied to the operating, but also transfers to reserves. So the cost of replacing capital is significantly higher than previous years. If we start to put a pause on replacing capital items, we can reduce our reserves. Fuel is going up. Utilities are going up. Insurance is going up. But we will go through each department and allow each council member to ask their questions. And, you know, if you feel that something is too high, we'll look at what those expenses are to those line items. I can tell you, I'll open it up and say, this is what we spent on it. And if you feel that those are appropriate areas to be cut, we definitely can do that.
Yeah, I think we need more information to
Yeah,
make
no,
those,
absolutely.
confirm, to make those
Yep,
decisions.
agreed.
We do, we need the information.
So I have a motion on the table
Oh,
at 0%. Somebody wants to second it, If you don't, don't.
All right, so Shelley, Councillor Micah has a motion for a 0% increase. Guys, is there a seconder out there?
I'll second that.
Councillor Olszewski. Any further discussion before we vote on it? Okay, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. I'll go around the room then. Councillor Micah,
Yay.
Councillor Blank,
nay.
Councillor Schulis,
Nay.
Councillor Olszewski,
Of course.
and I will vote on this and break the tie. It's nay.
So the motion is defeated.
Motion is defeated, yeah.
Just speaking to that, I don't think we can make a confirmed decision on that without knowing
No.
the numbers.
I agree, and I think we're instructing Amanda
what
to
it
bring
is.
back more,
Yes.
and we will determine how we'll proceed and work with the numbers from there.
And we may
And-
knock it down to 0.
Well, I'm not upset about it. I mean,
No.
everybody that voted for me knows exactly how I feel about the level of taxation in this municipality.
No, and it's
And I don't want to see 1% increase. I don't care if it's 50 cents more. on
and
the
we
tax bill.
do have different views and different opinions here, so it's fine to have that and have this
Makes for a
discussion.
good discussion.
I certainly agree, though, that we should get more information and come back and discuss it further. All right, so Amanda, where does that leave you?
Sure, but I'll figure something out.
So are
Okay.
we still at the 2.5% though?
So we don't have our MPAC assessment growth report yet. That will be coming in January, hopefully. So that will be presented to the committee, so you can see if any assessment growth has happened.
Because
And
it's, yeah.
we're just going to continue building our budget as best as we can.
Okay.
And I will try my hardest to.
Because I
Councillor
don't.
Blank, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So
ahead.
what I'd like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What I'd like to say is I'd like the staff to look at a 2.0% increase at this point because I think 2.5 is way too high. And I think that I think it gives us a better indication of how we can go down rather than up. So I'd rather 2.0.
And I would agree with that too. I think if we start with 2.0.
I will make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to give Amanda direction to work at 2%. Can I get a seconder on that? Councillor Shoeless. And again, we'll have a recorded vote on this. Councillor Micah.
Nay.
Okay, Councillor Blank.
Yay.
Councillor Shoeless. And Councillor Olszewski.
Nay.
And I will vote in favor of it. So it is passed.
I want to confirm, this is just to give a direction to prepare a document. This is not
That's,
past the
that's
budget.
correct.
Okay,
That's
thank
correct.
you.
This is
I
not,
want to clarify that. This is just a direction to start a document.
we are not,
Thank you for that.
we are,
Very
we're-
realistic.
yeah, that's an important point. We're not saying to the public or anyone at this point that it's 2%. That's our direction to our starting point, and we'll be gathering much more information and going from there. Councillor Blank.
Yes, and in response to Councillor Micah's comment about the people that voted for her, voted for that, they also voted for everybody else in that same vein. They all want us to keep things at a minimum. And I think we're doing them justice by looking at it the proper way, by not saying 0 to start.
All right, Amanda.
So, before we move on to item number 4, I would just like to comment that staff does go through their budgets line by line. I do not take a spreadsheet, apply 2.5% and go, done. We work on this for weeks. We do our best to keep these numbers as low as we possibly can. And hopefully we will have a very successful budget discussions in the future, and look forward to having those discussions with you. So I will just move on to number 4, tax arrears. It's just a note that the tax arrears report is presented to committee quarterly, and it will be presented to you in January by the deputy treasurer.
Okay.
Moving on to number 5. Changes to forms of payment. So in an effort to reduce issues related to accepting post-dated checks, we will no longer be accepting post-dated checks. We have approximately 4 to 5 ratepayers that will drop off 1 to 2 years worth of post-dated checks, and then it's up to the staff to keep them in a locked box and apply them at the appropriate time for their taxes. If this can result in some issues for us. Some ratepayers forget if they have or have not, and then we're looking to see, has it been accepted or has it not. There are so many options for paying your taxes at the moment. You can come into the office and, cash check. Debit, you can pay at the bank, you can pay online, you can pay via e-transfer. And so I think that this is something that will just help us with our operating procedures to make it smoother and to cut out any sort of issues that may come up. So we will be posting on social media, pushing that out there, that message out there for those handful of ratepayers that do drop them off. We still have some post-dated checks, and we will continue to be applying them as the time goes on, but we will no longer be accepting any, and I think this is the perfect time to put the message out there because it gives them at least 3 months before the next tax billing season for them to drop anything off. Is there any discussion about council members?
Councillor Blank?
Yes, regarding payment of taxes and stuff like that, I think it's important for us to remember that a lot of the people in the communities surrounding us do not have the extra capital coming in. They do not have 2.5% increase in their old age pension and all those other things where everything else is going on. I think we need to encourage a lot of people because we have back-to-back months for taxes. I think that it's important that the municipality ratepayers know that they can do it in installments, because I think we should encourage the installments on a monthly basis if they can, so that it doesn't hit them for, I believe it's May and June. What are the months? May and
March
June?
and April.
March and April, and
September.
because back-to-back like that, those times of years is very, very difficult. And I think that we should encourage and the people in the municipality to do it in installments. I think that needs to get out there a lot more.
Amanda?
thank you for that suggestion. So we'll absolutely push that message out there.
Okay.
We do have many ratepayers that do have their bank account set up to automatically pay
Yes.
monthly or bi-weekly
Yeah.
or whatever it
Yeah.
is. You know, some pay $25,
Yes.
you know, every 2 weeks, and it works for them. So we will absolutely put that out there.
Because I did hear that a lot. I did hear a lot of that.
We try. We have put out messaging to
Yes.
contact us.
Yeah.
You know, we're
It's
not
a thing of
scary
tr-
people
yeah,
here,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I would hope that the residents, you know, if you have concerns about making payments, please contact us. We will
Perfect, thank
try
you.
and do our best to help them out as best
We need,
as we
yeah,
can.
we need to inform them because some of them don't know.
Right,
Yeah.
and we do have the 4 payments for the year because it seemed to fit for us. January we have a water billing that goes out, and then February we have the tax billing that's due March and April, and then we have another water billing. So to change it up, there's almost every single month
Yes, there's something there.
that something comes out. So, but definitely we will do that.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Micah, did you have?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I agree, we should
Okay.
eliminate the holding on to 2 years worth of post-dated checks.
Yes, oh, yeah, yeah. Lucky them.
Well, no, I mean, God, if they got lost, I mean, it's just, that's just
Headache.
a massive headache
Lucky them
and
to have-
time, right? Somebody
Have
running
the
around.
ability to do that. but-
Yes, yeah, well, no, things have changed, you can pay through the bank, so, I mean,
All
So
right.
that concludes my report. Are there any other questions from the committee members for me?
Okay. Thank you very much, Amanda.
thanks,
Thanks,
Amanda.
Amanda.
All right, thanks, Amanda.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to
Have a
item
good day, Amanda.
12.12, which is CAO's item, appointment of the Integrity Commissioner.
This is just for council information, to let you know that I did reach out to the existing 2 integrity commissioners that we have to let them know that there would not be a newly appointed IC until into 2023. They both agreed that even though the bylaw says that it's ending December 22nd, 2022. It's an appointment and it's not a contract, so it's not like a contract terminates on that date. They've both been appointed by bylaw, so it will extend. But I do expect, so I did send out approximately 5 or 6 expressions of interest, asking, and I've provided them with our bylaw that we have a 2-tier IC in place. And I expect responses back by the 19th, so I would have a recommendation before council on December 20th. We would have a closed session to go over those that I have received back. And then I would expect the new integrity commissioner to be in place and appointed by bylaw the first meeting in January, after which time I would ask that they be the ones that do kind of a formal training with council, an education session on the code of conduct and the council staff relation policy and the conflict of interest act. So at that point, we'll be doing that.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? All right, if not, the report was just for information. We have one item of correspondence, and it's a letter from the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, and this letter is in response to municipalities sending letters to the ministry to address the gaps in compensation. So, are there any questions about it, or anything you want to explain, Sue?
No, it was just, it was a resolution that council had supported. We actually had a couple of resolutions saying that there was a financial gap, and we did send letters saying that we agreed with that stance and that we wanted some compensation, so.
All right, so that will conclude the finance portion, and we'll now go into the regular council portion of the agenda. Our first item is confirmation of the minutes from regular council meeting, 15th of November, 2022. So you have they're on page 199. Are there any questions?
No, I move to accept.
Okay.
Second?
Moved by Councillor Micah, seconded by Councillor Blank. Any further discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor? That's carried. All right. So our next ones are the special council meeting November 16th. So I need a mover and a seconder on this one. Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Olszewski. Any discussion on these ones? No?
Nope.
All right, all in favor? And they're carried. So next one is special council meeting minutes from November 29th. Again, I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Blank. Councillor Schulis.
Mixing it up.
Yeah. I was waiting to see.
It can't always be the boys and the girls, right?
No.
We gotta mix here a little bit.
Yeah, my head was starting to swivel though. So, anyway, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any discussion on these minutes?
None.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
And that's carried. And, okay, that was the 29th. And we also have the Committee of Adjustment meeting, November 29th. Need a mover and a seconder on this one.
I'll move.
Councillor
Second.
Micah and Councillor Olszewski seconds it. Any comments?
None?
All in favor? And that's carried. We have, Sue?
No, I just want to make sure it wasn't an omission, so we did have, a recommendation that the January 3rd council meeting be cancelled, but we did find some, it was a recommendation, a resolution that we initially, if you recall, when I spoke to council, I said that we were trying to have, so that staff is away, staff doesn't have to prepare, reports, and that we don't get any correspondence from the ministries during that week. So we would ensure that we have bylaws and delegations scheduled. So we did confirm that there are delegations scheduled and there will be bylaws coming forward. So we just wanted to make sure that you're okay with having the meeting on January 3rd. We don't have to do that resolution, but it was added on there. I didn't touch it.
Well, fine.
We're
Yeah.
good?
Yes,
No,
so
it was removed from the agenda. Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
just
it
didn't
was
know if
removed
That
from
was
the
removed,
agenda, and I think Gwen sent out an
There was
email
an
to
email.
everyone, yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay, so that's a council and committee, 10 a.m., Gwen?
Pardon me?
It's a council and committee, 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so we have a number of bylaws, and we'll start with the bylaw to appoint the acting mayor in the absence of the mayor. And this is bylaw 2022-95, appointment of head of council 23 to 26. I need a mover for this motion. Councillor Olszewski, seconded by Councillor Blank. Is there any discussion on this? I've had a chance to
None.
read it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is therefore, we'll vote on it. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw 2022-99, reused consumer-type portable battery recycling agreement with Call to Recycle Canada, Inc. I need a mover and a seconder for bylaw 2022-99, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-71, authorizing the entering into and execution of a used consumer-type portable battery recycling agreement between Call to Recycle and the Township, Madawaska Valley, and it'd be given first, second, and third reading. So I need a mover on that.
Just a question.
Yes.
Okay, this is this item here, compensation rates. So it's an increase
Yes,
Yes.
based on,
inflation.
That's, yeah.
That's the rate that they've
so
changed to.
approximately how much would it be over a year?
I don't have that number with me. We can bring that forward. Yeah.
Previous it was 50 cents. I have to look in the old.
No, I think, Mary, you were asking for the total for the
Total.
year.
The total,
Yeah.
how much it'll impact.
Is it $1,000, is it $500, is it $200, is it 10 million?
It won't be much. It'll be an increase in revenue.
Yeah.
It won't be much because it's going from 50 cents to 55.
We get the money.
Yeah,
It'll be
Yeah.
a few dollars is better than none.
yeah,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
It's good, with batteries,
Yeah,
All right.
It's a good program. It's
Yeah.
used
Yes,
throughout the
yes,
municipality,
yeah.
the library here.
yeah, that's, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to, is this the same supplier or vendor we've used in the past? Or is this a new one this year?
Agreement with the 20, there's pros now, and this is part of the pros. There's 4 pros within the recycling program, and where these guys go, they're one of the pros, so they look after the battery end of things. So
We've worked with them before?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
And, yeah.
okay, so, and we're happy with the relationship? Okay.
If I may, through the chair, to that point, when those attending Roma, there will be a session on the changes to the recycling program, and I think that'd be a good
I will
session
be
to
going to
attend
that
for
one.
sure. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to be there, was to be at that specific session.
All right, I think I did get a mover, but I can't remember who. Did it? No, I didn't? Okay.
I'll move.
All right. So we're moving to give this first, second, third reading and pass on this day. Could I get a mover?
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Micah, seconded by Councillor Blank. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And it's carried.
Is that it?
What's that? Yeah. So we're now, I need a mover and seconder to enter the in-camera session. Can I get a mover? Councillor Olszewski, Councillor Schulis. Enter the in-camera session at, Gwen, you can pick the time. Meeting enters in-camera session for the following: Municipal Act S239, brackets 1, bracket 3.1, a meeting of council or local board or of a committee of either of them may be closed to the public if the following conditions are both satisfied. 1, the meeting is held for the purpose of educating or training the members. 2, at the meeting no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matters in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of the council, local board, or committee. And personal matters about personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Ontario Municipal Act 2001 C25 S239 brackets 2 brackets B. And so we are now